Chapter 936. Gong Coco pouted in Jiang Shanka's arms and said embarrassedly, "I don't seem to be feeling well." When Sunning heard this, she seemed to have caught something and said loudly, "Don't tell me you can't do it after getting off the horse." She snorted. "How can someone who is proficient in horseback archery have such poor stamina? You're clearly shirking." Jiang Shanka was thinking about something else. Counting the days, it seemed that Gong Coco's period was coming soon. Her period had always been irregular, but she would show signs of poor stamina in the first few days. Thus, he quickly took off his suit jacket and wrapped it around Gong Coco. "All right, let's not compete anymore. Go rest." Sun Qin heaved a sigh of relief. His little sister was truly unreasonable. If Gong Kiki were to easily defeat her, even he, as her brother, would feel ashamed. Seeing that Gong Coco was feeling unwell, Leroy definitely wouldn't say anything, but Sunning wouldn't. She used almost all the strength she had in her life to stand up and say, "How much strength does it take to shoot an arrow? How much time will it take? If you don't dare, then admit defeat. Admit that you're not as good as me. Otherwise, spend 2 minutes and finish this competition." Jiang Shanka saw that Sun Ying's face was flushed red and was a little displeased. She wouldn't give up until all hope was gone, but there was no need for his baby to waste time with her. Gong Coco saw that Jiang Shanka's face had darkened and knew that he was going to say something outrageous. She quickly held him down. Anyway, Sun Ying was right. It didn't take much strength to shoot an arrow. Since she didn't give up, then she would convince her. However, Gong Coco's big cat eyes flashed with craftiness. How dare she make things difficult for her? She had to make this Miss Sun give up completely. So she said, "All right. You're right. It doesn't take much time anyway. I'll just play." Everyone's expressions were different. Jiang Shanka frowned. Just as he was about to disagree, Gong Coco pulled him and acted coquettishly. "But I really don't have any strength left. Darling, help me draw the bow." "No way." Sun Ying was the first to object. "Brother Zhang's equestrian archery skills are superb. You are obviously trying to cheat." Back then, she had trained hard because Jiang Shanka was good at horseback archery. Gong Coco smiled and took out a piece of silk from Jiang Shanka's suit pocket. Then, she used it to cover Jiang Shanka's eyes. "Is this okay, Miss Sun?" Sun Ying couldn't think of any rebuttal for a while, mainly because Jiang Shanka actually allowed Gong Coco to mess around and was very cooperative. This was something she couldn't accept. Gong Coco smiled proudly. That's right. Her goal was not to win against Sun Ying at all. If it was just archery, Sun Ying might not be able to play anymore after this competition. She wanted to make her give up hope at the source. Like Jiang Shanka. Humph. She's mine. Jiang Shanka was originally unwilling, but after listening to Gong Coco's suggestion, he let her do as she pleased. He also wanted Sun Ying to give up. After all, he was already married and liked his wife very, very much. Thus, under everyone's gaze, Jiang Shanka blindfolded his eyes and drew the bow into a full moon. As he was only wearing a fitted shirt, his arm muscles showed the perfect lines. It wasn't hard to imagine that not only did his body look thin with clothes on, but it was also well proportioned. It wouldn't be too much if it was too little, if it was too little, if it was too little. The surrounding waiters exclaimed in surprise. They only felt that this man's casual actions were too eye-catching. Gong Coco smiled and walked over. She wrapped her arms around his body from behind and hugged him in front of everyone. The sunlight shone on their bodies. At that moment, their bodies were equally tall and slender, yet inseparable. Gong Coco smiled as she adjusted Jiang Shanka's aim bit by bit. Her small hand held the bowstring with difficulty. Her white and tender palm pressed against the back of Jiang Shanka's honey-colored hand. His heart seemed to be grabbed by this small hand. This girl was always seducing him. Focus. Gong Coco stood on her tiptoes and whispered in his ear. Her entire body was pressed against Jiang Shanka's straight back. One was firm and firm, the other was gentle and beautiful. It inexplicably made people's hearts beat faster and their cheeks heat up. Jiang Shanka's entire body was stiff. Gong Coco's softness made him a little restless. He felt that if this continued, the one who would lose face would not be Sun Ning, but him. So he almost subconsciously shot an arrow. Others thought that it was because Gong Coco had adjusted her aim, but Gong Coco knew that Jiang Shanka had already memorized the position. He could hit it with his eyes closed. 10 points. The scorekeeper was extremely excited. This girl was too amazing. She could hit someone when they pulled the bow for her, and it was 10 points. At that moment, Sun Ning could no longer bear the humiliation and ran away crying. It wasn't that she couldn't accept losing, but she couldn't accept losing to Gong Coco. Losing to Gong Coco wouldn't have made her so desperate. What made her desperate was that when the two of them held the arrow together, there was no room for outsiders to interfere with that kind of tacit understanding and sweetness. Just one look at it was enough to break her heart. Sun Qin hurriedly chased after her. Lelo originally wanted to praise Gong Coco, but when he saw the two of them standing side by side, he realized that he was a bit of a third wheel. I'll go take a look. Lelo hurriedly slipped away. He thought that he should go to the VIP seats and drink some wine to calm himself down. Today's shock was a bit too much. Jiang Shanka was a little helpless. He reached out to pull the silk scarf over his eyes, but he was pulled back by Gong Coco. Under everyone's gaze, she stood in front of Jiang Shanka and raised her head proudly. I originally wanted to use the third arrow to split the second arrow. Who told you to hit the bullseye? I don't care, I'm going to punish you. Jiang Shanka had a doting smile on his face. He raised his hands and said helplessly. Okay. My princess, how are you going to punish me? Gong Coco snickered. Just pinch my face. Jiang Shanka was slightly stunned. There are a lot of people here. I'll pinch your face when we get back, okay? No. Pinch it now. Quick. Bend down. The kind laughter of the waiters around them could be heard. This couple was really too loving. Jiang Shanka thought about it and threw away his face as the CEO. He bent down slightly. His face was a little red, but when he heard Gong Coco's cheerful laughter, he felt that it was no big deal for a man to lose face for his woman. Seeing him squat down, Gong Coco smiled proudly with her hands on her hips. Jiang Shanka didn't wait for Gong Coco's punishment. Instead, his lips were warm and a familiar fragrance wrapped around him. He was shocked. Gong Coco actually took the initiative to kiss him in front of outsiders. Gong Coco kissed him with a red face. Her heart was finally balanced. Who told him to take advantage of her when feeding her wine? He made her blush and her heart beat for a long time. She wanted revenge. Who knew that just as she was about to speak, she was caught by Jiang Shanka. Her red lips were once again forcefully occupied by Jiang Shanka. He sneaked up on her again. Chapter 937. It was too torturous. The waiters at the side all covered their eyes. How could they be so good-looking? Even their kiss made people feel like pink bubbles? How could they let bystanders live? Gong Coco was almost suffocated by Jiang Shanka's kiss. When she thought about how she had been kissed by Jiang Shanke in front of so many people, she felt so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. She originally wanted to see Jiang Shanke embarrassed. After Gong Coco came to her senses, she angrily pushed Jiang Shanke away and ran away. After Jiang Shanke pulled the scarf off his eyes, he looked at Gong Coco's angry back and couldn't help but laugh. He felt strangely relaxed, and there was an indescribable joy in his heart. Pinching the scarf, he raised his eyebrows slightly. If he had known, he would have let her have her way. Now that she ran away in embarrassment, he still had to coax her. But she was so cute. When Gong Coco ran out in a huff, she accidentally bumped into someone. She was a little annoyed and subconsciously apologized. "I'm sorry, are you okay?" Gong Kiki raised her head and realized that the other party might be fine, but the set of clothes had been destroyed by the red wine in his hand. The clothes of the rich were all disposable, and the other party seemed to be quite rich. This set of clothes might have cost a few $100,000. She sighed in her heart. Great, she had to be in debt before she even started to earn money. "I'll compensate you for the clothes," Gong Coco said softly. When Pincho looked at the girl in front of him with a new idea. He was just about to look for her when she bumped into him. Could this be fate? He raised the wine glass and smiled evilly. "How do you plan to compensate me, you impudent girl?" Gong Coco heard this and said, "I forgot to bring my phone." "Well, when my husband finds me later, he'll compensate me." He didn't expect her to be married. When Pincho raised his eyebrows in surprise because with his eyesight, Gong Coco was definitely a virgin. Could it be that her husband couldn't do it? He asked very gently, "Who is your husband?" Gong Coco didn't rashly say Jiang Shanke's name. She just frowned with some annoyance. "Oh no, the number is already saved." She doesn't know Jiang Shanke's mobile phone number. Now I can only wait for him to find me. Seeing that Gong Coco did not speak, Wen Pingqiu said good-naturedly, "I'm Wen Pingqiu. What's your name? Just now, I saw you shooting arrows on a galloping horse. You are very good." In the face of other people's praise, Gong Coco was still very calm. She replied, "I'm not that amazing. I'm Gong Coco. Thank you for your praise." When Pincho saw that she had no intention of chatting more and was just anxiously waiting for someone, he felt a little regretful. Girls usually flocked to him wherever he went. It was rare for him to be interested in a girl, but she did not like him. Was it because she had just kissed her husband? When Pincho shook his wine glass. It didn't matter. As long as he liked it, there was nothing he couldn't get. Therefore, he said warmly, "How about this, I'm going to change my clothes. Miss Gong, please come with me. I know that you're the guest of the gentleman who booked the racecourse today. I'll get someone to inform him. When your husband arrives, you can leave, okay?" When Gong Coco heard this, she felt that what he said made sense. She couldn't let him wait here in dirty clothes. Although she was a little unwilling, his request was not excessive. Anyway, she had martial arts, so she was not afraid of anything. What he was angry about was that Jiang Shanke had not come to find her, making her feel very awkward now. When Wen Pingqiu saw that Gong Coco had agreed, he was very happy. He directly brought Gong Coco to his private changing room. Along the way, Gong Coco was waiting for Jiang Shanke to come and redeem her. However, the man in front of her was still quite gentlemanly. He did not make her feel uncomfortable, but she could not see through him, so she subconsciously kept her guard up. In the changing room, when Pingqiu was changing his clothes, Gong Coco sat outside and waited a little anxiously. Didn't she already ask someone to inform Jiang Shanke? Why wasn't he here yet? What she did not know was that in order to stay with her for a little longer, Wenpingqiu did not inform Jiang Shanke at all. Jiang Shanke was currently looking for her everywhere. At this moment, Wenpingqiu's gentle voice came from inside. "Miss Gong, my arm is injured. Can you come over and help me?" Gong Coco looked at the waiter beside her unwillingly. Wenpingqiu said again. "I don't really like waiter touching me." Gong Coco had no choice. Who asked her to be the instigator, and now she was still in debt. However, she was still on guard. After all, she was no longer the ignorant girl when she first arrived. She asked at the door, "May I ask if you have finished changing your pants?" In this time and space, it was normal for a man to bare his upper body. However, because of her brother's education, she still could not accept a man wearing shorts or appearing in front of her with his lower body disheveled. Wenpingqiu paused for a moment, then said with a smile. "Don't worry, Miss Gong. I have no intention of taking advantage of you." Gong Coco pushed the door open and walked in. Sure enough, Wenpingqiu was sitting there with his clothes on. One of the sleeves of his shirt was not pulled up. Gong Coco heaved a sigh of relief and went over to help. There was indeed an injury on his elbow. He did not lie to her. In an independent space, Wenpingqiu sized up the delicate face that was close to him, and his expression was dazed for a moment. He could be considered an old hand in love, but he had never seen a girl as clean as Gong Coco. Even if she did nothing, even if she stood there, she was like a ray of light. Such a girl had a fatal attraction to people in the dark. Wenpingqiu said. "Miss Gong seems to know a lot. I wonder what other sports do you like besides equestrian archery?" Gong Coco carefully helped him put on his sleeves and said, "I'm just playing around. I don't specialize in anything." Wenpingqiu's eyes lit up, "So Miss Gong knows everything. That's really amazing." Women would never refuse praise, not to mention that the other party was an outstanding and handsome man. Gong Coco dressed him with a serious face. She turned a blind eye to the beautiful muscles in front of her. Instead, it was as if she was facing a great enemy. What should she do? Jiang Shanke seemed to have said that other men were not allowed to get close to her. Then, if she got close to other men, would he be angry? It's just a small trick. Gong Coco buttoned up Wenpingqiu. The other party's exquisite six-pack abs and tight waist were enough to make any woman drool. However, Gong Coco felt that he was too thin. She still liked a stronger figure. When she thought of today's archery with Jiang Shanke in her arms, his tall figure allowed her to at most wrap around half of his body. Moreover, Jiang Shanke's muscles were even more beautiful. They were not exaggerated, but they were very tough. Thinking of this, Gong Coco secretly swallowed her saliva and then despised herself. Seriously, she was a princess after all. At this moment, she was actually thinking about a man's body. It was too scary. When Wenpingqiu saw this scene, he laughed in his heart. He knew that no one could escape his charm. Chapter 938. Intentionally or unintentionally, he moved closer to Gong Coco. He wanted to see her panicked expression, but his mouth was full of regret. If only I could have met Miss Gong earlier. Miss Gong is really the perfect partner in my heart. Gong Coco, who was trying her best to button up, was stunned for a moment, but did not say anything. Wenpingqiu felt that she must be regretting it now. He smiled wickedly, and a pair of electrifying eyes fell on Gong Coco's fair face, full of affection. "I wonder if Miss Gong can leave me your phone number. I don't have any friends in Haidian City. I really want to make friends with someone as interesting as Miss Gong." Gong Coco calmly buttoned up the top button of his shirt before looking at him and saying, "I'm afraid not. If my husband knew that I made friends with a gentleman, he would definitely be jealous." Wenpingqiu's eyes flashed with deep thought. It seemed that this girl was very afraid of her husband. This was a bit difficult. He revealed a regretful expression, and those lonely eyes made Gong Coco feel as if she had bullied someone. "All right, please forgive my rudeness, Miss Gong. I just like people like Miss Gong too much." Being repeatedly hinted at by a young, handsome, and rich man, a slightly vain woman might be soft-hearted. However, Gong Coco was not. She felt that this man's gentle gaze revealed a certain determination, which made her a little unhappy. "Why isn't my husband here yet? Did your people really inform him?" When Pincho chuckled, "He must have gone, but why isn't your husband here?" His eyes flashed with deep thought. Maybe he was held back by something. There are many special maids at the racecourse, and many people go there without their wives. In other words, it was better if she was not there. Gong Coco was a little angry. "How about this, get your people to follow me to get the money. Waiting like this is a waste of time." "Waste?" When Pincho moved closer. "To be able to stay with Miss Gong, no matter how long the time is, it becomes infinitely short. I hope that he will never come." Gong Coco stepped back subconsciously, but when Pincho suddenly took a step forward, pressed her against the wall with his uninjured right hand, and whispered affectionately, "Miss Gong, I can't deny that I fell in love with you at first sight. Regardless of whether it was your heroic figure in the racecourse or your archery skills, I was deeply captivated. The dirty clothes were just an excuse for me to keep you here. I don't need you to compensate me, but if you really want to compensate me, can you compensate me with yourself?" His long eyelashes fluttered and he actually looked a little innocent. That handsome face was filled with a flirtatious smile that could capture people's hearts. Gong Coco could not help but ask, "Is this how you usually deceive girls?" When Pincho did not expect her to be able to remain rational at this time. He smiled faintly. "I've never lied to anyone. If you must doubt me, I only want to lie to you." As he spoke, he lowered his head to kiss her. Gong Coco quickly dodged, and then reached out to push him, causing him to fall directly onto the sofa behind him. She took a step forward and grabbed his collar, telling him very domineeringly, "Not everyone will fall for your tricks. Aren't you afraid of retribution for deceiving girls like this?" She stepped on the sofa with one foot and lowered her body, looking at him with a very domineering gaze. She had learned this posture from TV. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Gong Coco revealed a devilish smile. Her cat-like eyes were mesmerizing, causing Wen Pingqiu to be completely stunned. "Feeling guilty? Let me tell you, if you dare to say such strange things to me again, I will make you regret appearing in this world." She let go of his collar and found that the lines from the script were very suitable for this situation. She snorted. "Humph, isn't it just money? I will compensate you for your clothes. From now on, stay away from me." In Wen Pingqiu's eyes, her arrogant smile was inexplicably charming. He suddenly felt that this woman was very interesting. No. Very interesting. He took advantage of the fact that Gong Coco was not paying attention and pulled Gong Coco's foot that was stepping on the sofa. Gong Coco was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Wen Pingqiu took the opportunity to hug her waist with both hands and smiled faintly. "You said that you don't want it, but now you are throwing yourself at me. You're really a hypocrite." His dangerous smile shocked Gong Coco. She thought that perhaps this was the true face of this man. Just as she was about to push him away, Jiang Shanka's angry voice was heard. "Let go of her." Gong Coco was shocked. "Oh no." She quickly got up and quickly took 3 steps away from Wen Pingqiu. Jiang Shanka stood at the door with a black aura all over his body, like a demon god. Wen Pingqiu looked at Jiang Shanka and felt a little regretful. He did not expect this little thing to be Jiang Shanka's wife. That would be a little difficult, he straightened his clothes and stood up, returning to his gentle mask. So it's Director Jiang. Long time no see. Wen Pingqiu. Jiang Shanke tried to hold back a few times, but he could not hold back the anger in his heart. He actually dared to take liberties with his girl. Gong Coco saw that Jiang Shanke's expression was really ugly and was a little scared. He did not look like he was baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. If she had known, she would not have played with him. Great, now she was caught red-handed. Gong Coco did not know why, but she thought of the washboard in television dramas. Pooh pooh pooh. That was for men to kneel, she was a princess. Jiang Shanke pulled Gong Coco into his arms and declared his dominance. Then, he sneered. You still like to snatch from me. Since young, have you ever won? They actually knew each other. And their friendship was not shallow. Wen Pingqiu said with some regret, if I had known, would have come earlier. Such an interesting little fellow is actually taken by an unromantic person like you. What a waste of a heavenly gift. Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows slightly. So you still know that she's mine. I advise you to stay away from her. Otherwise, I don't mind letting you relive how I kicked you out of Haitian City. As soon as he finished speaking, their gazes collided and sparks flew everywhere. That damn Jiang Shanke. When they were young, he was always on top of him. Who would have thought that he would be even more of an eyesore when he grew up? Jiang Shanke kept holding Gong Coco's hair and waist. He wanted to erase all the places that Wen Pingqiu had touched. Gong Coco was sandwiched between them and pulled Jiang Shanke's clothes. I dirted one of his clothes. She did not have money. Jiang Shanke glanced at her. He was really angry and wanted to laugh at the same time. She was so cowardly now. Why didn't she think of the consequences when she angered him? How much is your clothes? Just write the bill directly to the Jiang family. My wife is frightened. Goodbye. He especially emphasized the word wife. Wen Pingqiu was secretly resentful, but on the surface, he said it. It's okay. Coco is so cute. How can I bear to let her pay? Young Master Wen is so promiscuous. Aren't you afraid of being beaten to death? Thank you for taking care of me. I'm still alive and well now. Gong Coco was a little embarrassed. She felt that if it were not for the occasion, the two of them would have already fought. Chapter 939. Seeing that Jiang Shanke was here, he couldn't do anything. Wen Pingqiu straightened her clothes and winked at Gong Coco. Goodbye, Miss Coco. Gong Coco snorted cleverly. I don't want to see you. Humph. Wen Pingqiu looked amused and left. Gong Coco glanced at Jiang Shanke's cold face and was scared out of her wits. She was no longer as arrogant as she was on horseback. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She was a princess, okay. How could she be so cowardly? It must be because Jiang Shanke's sullen face looked like her brother's. It must be. Jiang Shanke pinched Gong Coco's waist and wanted to strangle her to death. When he couldn't find her just now, he thought that Gong Coco was deliberately avoiding him. Who knew that she would be taken advantage of by another man? Do you know your mistake? Jiang Shanke deliberately asked with a scary expression. Gong Coco tried to get away with it. She stared at Jiang Shanke with wide eyes and said aggrievedly, Isn't it because you came to find me so late? Wen Pingqiu said that there are many special maids at the racecourse. Were you hindered by them? Gong Kiki was definitely looking for trouble, but Jiang Shanke had no choice but to explain himself. He suppressed his anger and said, How can there be a woman more capable of causing trouble and occupying my mind more than you? He reached out and pinched Gong Coco's chin. Also, you know that person's name. How do you think I should punish you? Seeing that he was still angry, Gong Coco could only act shamelessly. Who told you to take so long to find me? I'm also very popular, okay? She wanted to slip away after saying that, but Jiang Shanke grabbed her and pressed her onto the sofa. What are you doing? There are many people outside. This is someone else's changing room. Jiang Shanke deliberately sneered. What am I doing? I want to put a mark on you. Lest you become too popular. As he spoke, he ignored Gong Coco's resistance and kissed her neck, looking like he wouldn't stop until he left a kiss mark. Gong Coco thought of the hickeys on her neck. What would others think of her? They might even think that she and Jiang Shanke had done something here, therefore, she gritted her teeth and pushed Jiang Shanke off the sofa. When Jiang Shanke fell onto the carpet, he didn't forget to pull Gong Coco up, so Gong Coco also fell down and sat on his body. Although Jiang Shanke was there to cushion the pain, this position was too embarrassing. Jiang Shanke's eyes widened. Gong Coco! How dare you push me when you've grown up? Gong Coco thought of the 3 rules after she kicked him off the bed last time. She hurriedly raised her hands in surrender. We're outside now. Can we be intimate again at home? Jiang Shanke narrowed his eyes. No. Little girl, don't press on me. I promise I'll only leave a mark. Gong Coco couldn't let go of him after he said that. Fortunately, she knew how to fall, so she wasn't in such a passive position. You wish. I won't let go. You're almost 30 years old. Can you not be so childish? Jiang Shanke said without hesitation, I'm almost 30 years old. Don't I still like you? Gong Coco glared at him and accidentally loosened her grip. Jiang Shanke took the opportunity to sit up and hug her. His anger dissipated in an instant. When he hugged her intimately, he only felt satisfied. Okay. Just leave a hickey, okay? Jiang Shanke wouldn't tell her that he just wanted to kiss her. She was so soft and fragrant, as addictive as poppy. Gong Coco looked reluctant, but she still turned her head away with red ears, revealing her fair and defenseless neck. Jiang Shanke's Adam's apple bobbed. He didn't know why, but at this moment, he actually had the urge to bite her. He wanted to eat her whole, so that there would be no distinction between flesh and blood. However, he didn't do that. He gently licked the neck of the person in his arms. She trembled and her body turned pink. Jiang Shanke felt his heart tremble as well. In the small space, their body temperature soared and they both felt numb all over. Gong Coco glanced at him coquettishly. Are you going to stay or not? Not staying. Before she could finish speaking, Jiang Shanke pressed the back of her head and kissed her fiercely. She was so sweet, pure, clean, knowledgeable, and dazzling that his actions were a little rough, causing Gong Coco to cry out in pain. However, the sound of her voice trembled slightly and tugged at his heartstrings. In the end, Jiang Shanke didn't leave a mark on her neck. Gong Coco was shy, so he just wanted to scare her. He didn't want to make things difficult for her or take advantage of her. When Gong Coco returned, her body was still limp. Jiang Shanke's kissing skills were getting better and better, and his fiery palms seemed to be able to ignite a person's body. Jiang Shanke asked, "How's your body?" Although Gong Coco had said that she was fine, he still confirmed it before eating. Gong Coco nodded shyly. Jiang Shanke couldn't hold it in any longer and immediately took her to bid farewell to Lolo. At this moment, Sunning had already returned. Sun Qin apologized to Gong Coco in embarrassment. "I'm sorry, my words today were too biased. Mrs. Jiang, please forgive me." When he said that, he even winked ambiguously. Did it take that long to find someone? Looking at Gong Coco's watery eyes and shy face, who knew what this beast had done to her just now? Jiang Shanke shamelessly pulled Gong Coco into his arms. Alright, I've received your apology. Let's go back. With that, he took Gong Coco home. Lolo clicked his tongue. You have the opposite sex but no humanity, Sun Qin sighed. I want to get married too. As soon as they got home, Jiang Shanke quickly tore off Gong Coco's clothes. His enthusiasm made Gong Coco respond as if she had been ignited. The air was so dry that it seemed like it was going to burn. Just as the two of them were reluctant to part, Gong Coco's phone rang. Jiang Shanke angrily pressed down on her hand, not letting her pick it up. At this moment, Gong Coco's black hair was spread all over the bed. Her clothes were half torn, and it made people restless. However, when Gong Coco saw that it was a call from her manager, she ignored Jiang Shanke and answered it. Jiang Shanke snorted, but he thought of something. He touched her body very evilly and kissed her neck and other sensitive areas, making Gong Coco use all her strength to control the lust that escaped her mouth. She glared at Jiang Shanke. Jiang Shanke continued without restraint. Then, the other party on the phone heard some suspicious sounds and blushed. The manager didn't know about the relationship between Gong Coco and Jiang Shanke. He only knew that Gong Coco was a newcomer that the higher-ups had specially instructed him to take care of. He immediately said somewhat sternly, although you have a background, as an artist and a newcomer, you are not allowed to have any scandals, understand? Chapter 940. Gong Coco was a little embarrassed. Seeing that Jiang Shanke was still teasing her maliciously, she angrily pressed Jiang Shanke under her and grabbed his naughty hand. Sister Zhou, don't worry. I don't have a messy private life. That was my husband. When Jiang Shanke heard her say the word husband, he felt comfortable all over. However, a cry of surprise came from the other side of the phone. What? You're married? Jiang Shanke was a little unhappy and wanted to snatch her phone away to say something. Why couldn't Coco get married? How could a manager interfere with their marriage? Gong Coco hurriedly held him down. Seeing that he wanted to say something, she even covered his mouth with her mouth and winked at him to be quiet. Gong Coco's initiative was especially useful to Jiang Shanke. It was like a hungry lion that had been fed in an instant and was satisfied. He immediately became obedient and didn't try to snatch her phone away. Sister Zhou, don't worry. My business won't affect my work. Zhou Hui thought about it and felt that Gong Coco had a background after all. Perhaps he was her husband. Thus, she didn't pursue this issue and talked to her about something else. The Mother of the World drama has been negotiated, and it's going to start filming soon. So, I want to talk to you about something. I was going to talk to you in person. I'll talk to you over the phone. Is it convenient for you? Her last sentence was very serious. Yes, it's convenient. My husband just went out. Gong Coco glanced at Jiang Shanke and wanted to get up to answer the phone. But how could Jiang Shanke let her have her way? He hugged her tightly and looked at her with an expression that said, call your phone and I won't disturb you. Gong Coco endured it and continued to make the phone call. Sister Zhou, go ahead. Okay. The other party started to talk non-stop about things to take note of. However, Jiang Shanke reached out to unbutton Gong Coco and was about to take off her remaining clothes. You! Gong Coco took the phone away and said fiercely, behave yourself. Jiang Shanke smiled innocently, but his hands were still firmly taking off Gong Coco's clothes, and he whispered in her ear. Don't make any strange noises. Others will hear it. With that, he took off his clothes with one hand and kissed Gong Coco with the other. Gong Coco struggled with all her might. Sister Zhou was a strict person. She did not want to make her angry. However, Jiang Shanka's flirting skills were getting better and better. The more she struggled, the hotter her body became. She looked at Jiang Shanka with misty and pitiful eyes. Not only did he not stop, he became even more aggressive. A coquettish voice made Zhou Hui stop talking. She asked suspiciously, "Are you listening?" "Yes, yes, yes. I'm listening." Gong Kiki was so embarrassed that she could die. She quickly held Jiang Shanka down, but her clothes were taken off by Jiang Shanka. Under his scorching gaze, she wanted to cover her chest and escape. "Okay, I'll tell you more about Jiang Chuanming." Gong Kiki couldn't wait for the other party to hang up the phone, but the other party didn't understand her intentions. On the other hand, Jiang Shanka looked at her calmly and felt that he should give Zhou Hui a raise. His flirting became more and more intense. Gong Coco could not stop moaning. Her body seemed to have turned from ice to water. Jiang Shanka was still melting her. This was too much. Finally, she moaned. Zhou Hui heard the strange sound and suddenly stopped. She paused and finally said mercifully, "That's all. We'll talk about the rest when you're free." "Yes, yes, yes." Gong Coco quickly apologized and agreed. Just as the other party hung up, Jiang Shanka pounced on Gong Coco like a hungry tiger. However, Gong Coco was very angry at this moment. Sister Zhou was obviously angry just now. It was all because of Jiang Shanka, that bastard. Hence, she pushed Jiang Shanka away and stood up with her clothes in her arms. Since you're so disobedient, you can sleep alone." Jiang Shanka was stunned. Seeing that Gong Coco was really angry, he quickly hugged his wife's waist and coaxed her. "My dear, my wife, my princess. I was wrong. I didn't do it on purpose." His handsome face pretended to be aggrieved. Because their skin was so close, Gong Coco could feel his body's strong reaction. Gong Coco was even angrier. This guy, ever since he knew that she was in good health, he was getting more and more out of control. She snorted, "You didn't do it on purpose. Since you're disobedient, you can hold it in. I'm going to sleep in the guest room." "What?" Without waiting for Jiang Shanka to resist, she packed her things and left, leaving Jiang Shanka alone on the bed. He was so shocked that he turned into a stone statue. What should he do? His wife seemed to be really angry. After Gong Coco went to the guest room, she was a little pleased with herself. Mother said that men can't be spoiled. As long as it's a man, it's a rule. Hence, although she was dissatisfied with the comfort of the guest room, she still stayed. She wanted to teach Jiang Shanka a lesson. She wanted to let him know that this princess had a temper. Jiang Shanka kept walking in circles. As he knocked on the door several times, he was stopped outside the guest room. Jiang Shanka wanted to tear down the door. But if he did, his wife would be even angrier. Although he was almost 30 years old, he had no experience in love. No matter how calm he usually was, he was like a young boy now. The more he thought about it, the more ashamed he felt. He knew that Keek's skin was thin. No wonder she was so angry in front of outsiders. What should he do? Gong Coco was a little dissatisfied as she grabbed the blanket. Jiang Shanka had only knocked on the door 5 times and he was already not going to knock. Humph. She decided to sleep in the guest room tomorrow. With all kinds of grievances and other complicated emotions, Gong Coco couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. She felt that Jiang Shanka only liked her a little. He would give up if there was a slight setback. If he knocked on the door 2 or 3 more times, she would forgive him. Just as she was thinking, the door suddenly made a slight noise. It was too soft. If it wasn't for the fact that Gong Coco wasn't awake, she wouldn't have heard it. Very quickly, the door opened. Smelling Jiang Shanke's unique scent, Gong Coco's mood instantly changed. However, she didn't wake up and continued to pretend to be asleep. Jiang Shanke secretly closed the door and quietly approached. The process was like a thief, and it was in his own home. It was said that a woman in love was hard to understand. Jiang Shanke was also afraid that Gong Coco would be angry and misunderstand that he only wanted her body and didn't love her. Therefore, he couldn't think of a good idea after thinking for a long time. He could only sneak over in the middle of the night and hug her to sleep so that she could see him when she woke up tomorrow morning. By then, she would definitely be appeased. After all, she wasn't a calculative girl. Even if she wasn't appeased, he would sneak over every day. There was no other way. Jiang Shanke couldn't think of a better idea. Looking at Gong Coco's delicate face, Jiang Shanke sighed. In order not to be impulsive after coming over, he took a long cold shower in the room. He should be able to control himself later. With that thought, he sneaked onto the bed. Chapter 941. Gong Coco snickered in her heart. Seeing Jiang Shanke, who was usually so steady, being so cautious, she felt very happy. The wild thoughts from before instantly vanished into thin air. However, after Jiang Shanke went to bed, she suddenly asked, "Why is your body so cold?" Jiang Shanke was shocked. "You're awake." Gong Coco knew martial arts. Although she slept soundly on his bed, in the guest room, she would definitely be alert. Gong Coco turned around and looked at him without blinking. "You went out just now." "No," Jiang Shanke said the truth with a guilty conscience. "I treated you like that just now and made you angry. So I went to take a long cold shower before coming back. I didn't want to do that to you again and make you even angrier." Gong Coco burst out laughing. In the darkness, her eyes were shining. She didn't expect Jiang Shanke to be so cute. "Do you know what you did wrong?" Gong Coco asked. Jiang Shanke sighed. "I know. Who asked me to be in the hands of a little thing like you? In the future, I will respect you even more. Today, I just can only be considered as a man's bad nature." He found an excuse for himself. Gong Coco didn't say anything. Just as Jiang Shanke was waiting for her to speak, Gong Coco suddenly rolled into his arms and whispered, "I still like it when you hug me to sleep." Jiang Shanke was stunned, but his hands had already subconsciously hugged her. The corner of his mouth unconsciously curled up. Jiang Shanke asked in a deep voice, not angry anymore. Gong Coco nodded. Jiang Shanke still had some lingering fear. He thought for a while and said, "Coco, although I'm much older than you, I don't really understand women's thoughts." He hugged Gong Coco a little tighter. "If I made you unhappy in any way, tell me. I will change." Gong Coco's heart softened as she asked softly, "Accommodating me in everything?" Jiang Shanke nodded and said hoarsely, "Because I love you." After he finished speaking, both of them were stunned. They had been together for so long. Although they liked each other, they had never said the word love. Jiang Shanke said it because he was older and felt it was too awkward to say it, while Gong Coco said it because she was shy. However, when they heard him say it in such a logical manner, their hearts trembled. Jiang Shanke smiled. It seemed that it was not as hard to say as he thought. As for Gong Ku, she thought of her mother. No wonder her mother liked to hear her father say sweet words to her so much. It turned out that those seemingly simple words actually sounded so wonderful. Seeing that Gong Coco had no reaction, Jiang Shanke was a little unhappy. "Little girl, do you love me?" Although he knew the answer in his heart, Jiang Shanka just wanted to hear Gong Coco say it. Gong Coco shyly covered her head with the blanket. I have to wake up early tomorrow. I'm going to sleep. Jiang Shanka laughed and did not force her. He hugged her and fell asleep in satisfaction. The next day, when Gong Coco appeared on set, many people looked over. In the past, Gong Coco was very beautiful, but now, she looked even more glorious. Today, everyone was just meeting to get to know each other. After that, Gong Coco took the script to find the director. Since she had decided to do something, Gong Coco could not help but be perfect. She pointed out the mistakes about the ancient times in the script and integrated what she knew. The scriptwriter's eyes lit up when he heard it. He felt that he could change it according to Gong Coco's words. Anyway, there was still a long time before the start of filming. Jiang Chuanming waved his hand and agreed. Then, he brought everyone to eat. The male lead of this drama did not come. After all, it was not the start of filming. Gong Coco was talking to the director. At this moment, a person suddenly walked towards them with an evil look on his face. Wang Baichuan had been thinking about Gong Coco since the last time he saw her. Now that his headache was better, he came to look for her. Although this time, because of his inexplicable illness, he missed the opportunity to go further with Gong Coco. But as the biggest investor of this film, if Gong Coco wanted to continue filming, she could not offend him. So, he came over with a glass of wine. Miss Gong, we meet again. When I first saw you, I was shocked and thought that you were the only one who could compete for this role. Sure enough. Gong Coco recognized that this was the person who had caused trouble for her during the audition. She smiled faintly. What's the matter? Wang Baichuan saw that she was cold and inviolable. He felt even more tempted. Nothing, nothing. I just wanted to treat you to a glass. Who knows, we might have to work together in the future. As he spoke, he handed over the wine that he had prepared. His words were full of temptation. Gong Coco hesitated for a moment before taking the wine and drinking it. The director at the side wanted to stop her, but he could not do so in time. Usually, at such a banquet, everyone would try to persuade each other. There were not many girls who were as straightforward as Gong Coco. Wang Baichuan was delighted. He did not expect Gong Coco to be so innocent. He just had to wait for the medicine to take effect. After Wang Baichuan left, the director, Jiang Chuanming, said in disapproval, "Didn't your manager tell you not to drink wine handed to you by others?" Gong Coco smiled and said, "It's okay. I won't get drunk even after 1,000 glasses." After a while, Jiang Chuanming saw that Gong Coco was fine. Only then did he relax. He had his eyes on Gong Coco. How could he let Wang Baichuan succeed so easily? Wang Baichuan was a little anxious. Gong Coco looked like she did not drink that glass of wine. Could it be that the amount was not enough? He gritted his teeth, added some medicine to the wine, and asked someone else to toast Gong Coco. Gong Coco did not refuse and drank another glass of wine with the added medicine. Jiang Chuanming was originally worried about Gong Coco and kept an eye on her. However, seeing that she did not blush at all after drinking more than 10 glasses of wine, he could not help but click his tongue in wonder. At this moment, Wang Baichuan's expression was very ugly. In the past, when he met women, they would either directly submit to him and take what they needed, or after he drugged them, they would just cry and admit defeat. However, even after he drugged them, Gong Kiki did not seem to be confused at all. He could not understand. After all, it was said that one bag of his medicine could knock out 10 elephants. Gong Coco naturally knew how depressed Wang Baichuan was. Her body had been modified by Uncle Chiu Xingfeng. Not to say that she was immune to poison, but this level of medicine had no effect on her. Seeing that Gong Coco was about to leave, Wang Baichuan did not find a chance to make his move. He made up his mind. Anyway, Gong Coco only had one assistant with her. Wait a minute, when Gong Coco left the club, it was already very late. At this moment, her assistant Wu Wentao wanted to help her out, but she rejected him. Wu Wentao was about to speak when a few men suddenly rushed out from the dark. They carried Gong Coco and ran away. The remaining one stayed behind to hold Wu Wentao down and prevent him from calling the police. Gong Coco did not resist. Since the other party was so bold, the guards and the like might have been beaten up. This was good. She could find a hidden place to deal with that guy. Chapter 942. When she was put down, someone pulled off the black bag over her head. Gong Coco then saw that she was in a dark room. This should be Wang Baichuan's private villa. The person who caught her saw that Gong Coco was staring at him and felt a little scared. That's weird. This woman didn't resist or scream the whole way. The other person was also uncomfortable with Gong Coco's gaze. He said, "Who cares? Maybe she's an idiot." After they finished speaking, they quickly walked out. Not long after, Wang Baichuan walked in with a smile. Seeing that Gong Coco was looking at him, he said proudly, "Beauty. You didn't expect it to be me, did you?" Gong Coco pointed to a small hole in the wall opposite and said, "What do you mean by this?" A look of surprise flashed across Wang Baichuan's eyes. He didn't expect Gong Coco to find such a small pinhole camera. As long as he wanted to sleep with a woman, he would take a video for her. Firstly, it was to prevent her from doing anything that would harm him in the future. Secondly, if he met someone who refused to submit to him, he could use the video to threaten them and do it a few more times until he got sick of it. He smiled lewdly and said, "Looks like the little beauty still doesn't understand the current situation. You're still thinking about other things. If you have the energy, why don't you serve me? Don't worry, I'll make you famous." With that said, he pounced on Gong Coco. However, Gong Coco stopped him with the tip of her foot. She smiled innocently. "Do you know what happened to the last person who did what you did?" Wang Baichuan didn't expect Gong Coco to be so strong that she could stop him with just one foot. He was shocked. Gong Coco continued. "I heard that his lower body was crippled and he's in prison now. He's being used by other men. Do you want to try it too?" Wang Baichuan trembled. He actually saw evil in Gong Coco's pure smile. He took a step back and suddenly clapped his hands. Just then, a few men came in from outside, each of them strong and powerful. "Little girl, I didn't expect you to have some skills. But it's useless. Let me tell you, if you don't accept the toast, then I can only invite you to drink the forfeit." Gong Coco sat at the end of the bed and asked with a smile, "Why did you call so many people over?" Seeing that she could still smile, Wang Baichuan said darkly, "Of course I'm going to control you and stop you from struggling. Don't worry, if you're obedient, I'll let you go after I'm satisfied. But if you're not obedient..." He snorted, "Then when I'm done, you'll have to serve them." The 5 men who came in heard this and looked at Gong Coco's graceful figure and exquisite facial features. They couldn't help but gulp. Obviously, this wasn't the first time they had done this. Gong Coco chuckled. "That sounds interesting. By the way, do you still have the medicine you gave me before? I want to use it to add to the fun." Seeing that Gong Coco was terrified, Wang Baichuan hurriedly took out the medicine from a drawer and poured it into a glass of red wine. Gong Coco said softly, "The amount is too little. Pour more." Wang Baichuan excitedly poured a little more into the glass as a bodyguard beside him said, "Boss, it's fine. Just a little bit of this medicine can turn the saintess into ass." If you pour so much, she won't be able to stop later. Wang Baichuan became even more excited when he heard this. Don't I still have you guys? I'll definitely be able to feed this little. As he said this, the men in the room burst into laughter. Gong Coco laughed at them for not knowing that they were about to die. Then, she saw Wang Baichuan walking towards her with the glass in his hand. Suddenly, a scream was heard from the dark room. It turned out that Wang Baichuan's wrist had been broken by Gong Coco, but that glass of wine had fallen into Gong Coco's hands unharmed. Ah! It hurts. Damn it, what are you guys still standing there for? Capture her for me. Amidst Wang Baichuan's painful gasps, Gong Coco was like a dancer, easily kicking the 5 men to the ground. Even after doing all this, not a single drop of the wine in her hand spilled out. This showed how powerful she was. Everyone was afraid. They thought that she was a little white rabbit, but they didn't expect her to be a big bad wolf. Seeing Gong Coco walking towards him step by step, Wang Baichuan was shocked. He quickly pulled out his gun with his other hand, but in the next second, the gun fell into Gong Coco's hands, and the black muzzle was pointed at him. Although it's my first time playing with a gun, it looks very simple. Gong Coco was still smiling innocently, but the red wine in her hand was as viscous as blood. At this moment, the person on the other side of the camera realized that something was wrong and brought the entire villa in. Gong Coco pointed the gun at Wang Baichuan and said indifferently, "Whoever comes closer, I'll shoot him first." Those people really didn't dare to come closer. At this moment, Wang Baichuan was so scared that his face was pale. He sat on the bed, but his body was weak and sweating profusely. "Madam, ancestor. Don't be rash. I'll give you whatever you want. I have money, I have a lot of money." Gong Coco blinked. That clean and pure aura had a trace of evil. I don't want money. She handed the wine glass in her hand to Wang Baichuan. "Hey, you forced me to drink a lot of wine at the table tonight. I'll let you drink this glass. You won't refuse, right?" Wang Baichuan was shocked. He looked at Gong Coco in fear. "I'll pay. I'll really pay. I know I'm wrong, ancestor. Ancestor, please let me go." Seeing that Wang Baichuan was disobedient, Gong Coco pinched his chin and forced him to drink. In the process, the person behind wanted to run over to save their master, but Gong Coco shot him with the back of her hand. Then, the wine glass fell to the ground. Wang Baichuan painfully covered his neck and fell on the bed. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect Gong Coco to really shoot him. Gong Coco smiled and glanced at everyone. Suddenly, she asked, "How many girls did you film with that camera in this room?" A bespectacled man broke through the door and stammered. "2, more than 20. The real number was definitely more than that, but it didn't matter." Gong Coco counted. Not bad. Just about 20. She smiled and said to the people at the door, "All of you, come in and close the door." When they heard this, they looked at each other and walked in. Gong Coco pointed at Wang Baichuan, who was getting more and more uncomfortable on the bed. "He must need you now. How about this? The few of you, get Wang Baichuan in a good position and kneel down. The rest of you, line up and get on him one by one." Everyone was shocked. Wang Baichuan, who still had a trace of rationality, revealed a terrifying expression. "Gong Coco. How dare you?" "I dare." Gong Coco played with the gun in her hand nimbly and looked down at the man on the bed. "Don't you like to force yourself on me? I'll satisfy you tonight." Seeing that they didn't move, Gong Coco pointed at the 5 men who came in first and said, "Go, get in a good position for your boss." Chapter 944. Jiang Shanka suddenly reached out and knocked her on the head as he said fiercely, "You're wrong. Wrong, think again." Gong Coco covered her forehead with both hands. She could no longer hold back the grievance in her heart. Under the streetlight, bean-sized teardrops fell one by one. That aggrieved gaze made Jiang Shanka's angry expression freeze. Without waiting for him to say anything, Gong Coco pushed him angrily. "I didn't do anything wrong. He was the one who bullied me. I just wanted to tease him. I didn't do anything wrong." Her eyes were covered with tears. She pouted so hard that an oil bottle could be hung from her mouth. She said angrily, "I knew you would hate me. You like it when I'm obedient. You like it when I'm obedient and innocent. You must think that I'm a bad person now. Are you going to break up with me by being so fierce?" The more she spoke, the more aggrieved she felt. As she spoke, she used her finger to poke Jiang Shanka's chest. "I'm telling you. If you don't want me, I'll..." Before she could finish speaking, Jiang Shanka held her in his arms. In order to stop her from saying more heart-wrenching things, he hurriedly covered her mouth with his. Gong Coco wouldn't allow Jiang Shanka to kiss her at this moment. However, in a situation where she didn't use her inner energy, she was just an ordinary woman. Seeing that she was resisting, Jiang Shanka pressed her against the car and kissed her wantonly. Gong Coco's strength to resist gradually weakened. She allowed Jiang Shanka to take what he wanted from her mouth. However, her tears kept falling, making Jiang Shanka's heart ache. He frowned and wanted to laugh at the same time. Seeing Gong Coco looking at him pitifully as she cried, he finally sighed dotingly and said in a low voice. "What a silly girl." Gong Coco felt bad when she heard that. She glared at him, looking like she was going to bite him to death. Jiang Shanka hurriedly continued, "How would I dare not like you?" Gong Coco's face turned red with anger. Jiang Shanka pressed his forehead against hers. "If I don't like you, I won't be able to take it if you torture me like this." Although he was begging for mercy, the affection in his words was so lingering that it made the bodyguards, who were watching from afar, blush and their hearts beat faster. The man and woman hugging each other were too compatible. Looking at them from afar, they seemed to be emitting pink bubbles. Gong Coco blushed inexplicably. She calmed down a little. She could tell that Jiang Shanka didn't seem to hate her, but she was still unwilling to accept it. She pouted and said fiercely, "I want it. If you make me unhappy, I will punish you in the same way." Jiang Shanka's eyes were filled with love. He licked Gong Coco's lips very gently and said in an extremely ambiguous manner, "Fine, you can punish me as much as you want. You can strip me naked and do whatever you want, but I only want you to punish me." Gong Coco's face instantly turned red. She was clearly talking to him seriously. How could he suddenly tease her? "Who wants to punish you like that?" she said sternly. "Besides, don't you hate me?" "I wouldn't dare, my little princess. You were clearly fierce to me just now." Jiang Shanka said in annoyance, "I'm angry that you actually risked your life alone again. I'm angry that you had to deal with such people personally. When will you learn to rely on your man?" Speaking of this, his expression turned severe. "Oh right. You weren't watching from the side just now, were you? Did you see those people's bodies?" Jiang Shanka suddenly raised his voice. That terrifying gaze immediately suppressed Gong Coco's aura. It felt like the east wind was suppressing the west wind, and the west wind was suppressing the east wind. It was indescribably dramatic. Gong Coco lowered her head and argued, "No. I didn't look." "Really?" Jiang Shanka was doubtful. "You didn't even take a look?" Gong Coco nodded vigorously. "I'm afraid of dirtying my eyes." Jiang Shanke then smiled in satisfaction. He pressed down on Gong Coco and kissed her affectionately. Gong Coco saw the bodyguards looking over suspiciously. Thinking of how Jiang Shanke had pressed her against the car and kissed her crazily, Gong Coco's body went weak. However, she gritted her teeth and glared at Jiang Shanke. That's enough. Restrain yourself. Jiang Shanke only let her off because he thought that she would be embarrassed. Silly girl, you're too impulsive. We're not in ancient times anymore. There are many ways to vent your anger. If you do this, you'll probably drag yourself into it. After all, Wang Baichuan was still quite influential. After being humiliated tonight, he probably wouldn't let Gong Coco off even if he died. Gong Coco then thought in annoyance, did she cause trouble for Jiang Shanke again? She said, I have a recording of him being that. He won't dare to act rashly. Jiang Shanke saw that she still knew to keep a recording and looked at her as if she was a teachable child. However, this wasn't enough. If a person wanted to take revenge on another person, there were many ways to do so. Alright, don't worry about this. If he dares to touch you, your husband will naturally teach him a lesson. But next time, you have to remember to eliminate the source of trouble, especially when dealing with people like this. Do you understand? Gong Coco blinked. Don't you think I'm very bad? Jiang Shanke rubbed her head vigorously. Bad? I think you're too kind. If it were him, Wang Baichuan would be dreaming if he wanted to escape unscathed. However, it wasn't too late now. Let's go home. I'll take care of the rest. But Gong Coco didn't expect Jiang Shanke to be so tolerant of her. She was touched and a little embarrassed. No buts. Jiang Shanke stuffed her into the car and told her in a low voice, you just have to remember that in my heart, you're the most important. Nothing can compare to you. I love you, I love everything about you. I should be happy that you have such a bad idea, so that the bad guys won't bully you. Gong Coco lowered her head in embarrassment. She remembered that when she was away, Qiuxingfeng would help her deal with all the bad things she did. In the palace, her brother would protect her with all his strength. It was always her who bullied others. Of course, she only bullied the bad guys. Seeing Jiang Shanke get into the car, Gong Coco was a little reserved. You really don't mind? She asked again. Jiang Shanke sighed and suddenly said something that seemed to have nothing to do with him. Tell me, how can I make you understand that you're married? Gong Coco looked at him with a puzzled expression. Jiang Shanke reached out and tucked her hair behind her ear. His low voice was as mellow as a cello. At the very least, you should learn to rely on me, just like how you rely on your brother. However, your brother will still discipline you, but I won't. I love you, I love everything about you. Even your little evil thoughts deeply fascinate me. Gong Coco turned her head away. You. Stop it. Her heart beat faster. She couldn't stand Jiang Shanke's words of love. Jiang Shanke leaned over and said seriously. I'm willing to do anything for you. Please don't doubt me anymore, okay? Chapter 945. Gong Coco's eyes shone brightly. Her mood was as if she had seen the sun after the clouds parted. She had once asked her mother what kind of man she should marry in the future. Her mother looked at her father and secretly told her to find someone who loved her blindly and trusted her. She didn't understand at that time. Wouldn't love lead to trust? But now she knew that for a man, love and trust could be separated. Fortunately, she met a man who loved her blindly and accepted everything about her. She suddenly didn't want to go back. Brother, sister is useless. Her heart was stolen by a man. The next day, Wang Baichuan woke up. As he covered his wound and cursed at the heavens and earth, wanting to take revenge on Gong Coco, the police suddenly rushed into his house and said that someone had provided evidence of him selling drugs. They wanted to arrest him. After Wang Baichuan went to prison, the Wang family's business declined rapidly and the stock price plummeted. Jiang Shanke took the opportunity to buy the shares and turn the tide. He became the man with the most authority in the Wang family's business. The Wang family was forced into a corner by him and there was no way to get Wang Baichuan out. As a result, the Wang family completely declined. Gong Coco was slightly speechless when she heard the news. Jiang Shanke was indeed decisive. This was similar to her brother. At the same time, Gong Keek's new drama had also started filming. It started raining, and autumn had arrived. With the broadcast of Ming Zhao's legend, Gong Coco's dark history seemed to have become a thing of the past. Her anti-fans gradually disappeared and her fans increased. Although this amount of fans was nothing in the eyes of those big stars, Gong Coco was very satisfied. She looked and saw that she had 100,000 fans. In addition, there were fans who came to the set to visit the day before yesterday. Gong Coco's heart softened. She felt that the feeling of being inexplicably liked by people was really good. Jiang Shanke saw that Gong Coco was looking at her fans again. Although she didn't show it on her face, she couldn't suppress the pride in her heart. Jiang Shanke even had the urge to buy fans for her. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid that Gong Coco would be unhappy if she found out, he would have done so. Alright, stop looking. Mom is coming. Gong Coco panicked. Didn't you say in a few days? Why so sudden? Jiang Shanke's mother should have come a long time ago, but her headache came back later, so she didn't come until now. Jiang Shanke snickered. He probably wants to give you a surprise. This is simply too frightening. Gong Kiki stood up in a panic. Am I very ugly right now? I stayed up all night to read the script. I must be exhausted now. Jiang Shanke smiled and held her hand as they walked downstairs. Don't worry. Even an ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her in-laws. Besides, my Kiki is so pretty and cute. Gong Coco couldn't dissuade him. After a while, he brought her downstairs. At this time, the housekeeper opened the door and a thin but beautiful woman appeared at the door. When she saw Jiang Shanke and Gong Coco, her eyes lit up. Look at how compatible you two are. Jiang Hanjing had not seen her son and daughter-in-law for a long time, so she was very excited. She held Gong Coco's hand and looked at her left and right. She praised her from the bottom of her heart. Kiki. Are you Kiki? Why do I feel like you've become younger and prettier? Gong Coco looked at Jiang Shanke awkwardly. Jiang Hanjing touched her hand and said, and your skin is getting softer and softer. Could this be the nourishment of love? When she left, her son and daughter-in-law were still getting along with each other indifferently. In just a few months, they actually appeared hand in hand. Jiang Shanke quickly helped Gong Coco out of her predicament. Mom, don't worry. We have a good relationship. Who knows, you might be able to have a grandson soon. Gong Coco looked at Jiang Shanke shyly. As Gong Coco's new drama had to be filmed in a hurry, Gong Coco was busy most of the time. Jiang Shanke did not want to tire her out. Although they had agreed to consummate their marriage, it had been delayed. So, she was still a virgin. But Jiang Hanjing's eyes lit up when she heard that. A grandson is good. I'll like it regardless of whether it's a boy or a girl. After chatting for a while, they started to eat. As she didn't have much contact with Gong Coco, Jiang Hanjing didn't recognize that she wasn't the real person. At the dining table, Jiang Shanke suddenly asked curiously. Mom, didn't you have a headache? Why did you suddenly come back? Because Jiang Hanjing's headache needed to be nursed back to health, she had been abroad all this time. Actually, Jiang Shanke was a little confused about her return this time. Jiang Hanjing glanced at Gong Coco and thought about it. In the end, she didn't lie to him. Well, your dad, Jiang Shanke's face suddenly darkened. My dad died a long time ago. Seeing that, Jiang Hanjing didn't say anything else. Gong Coco bit her chopsticks curiously. Jiang Shanke rarely talked about his family matters with her, so she was a little curious when she suddenly heard that. Jiang Hanjing saw Gong Coco's confused face and knew that she didn't know about these things. So, she said. You're also married and will have your own children soon. I've already forgiven him, so why can't you forgive him? Jiang Shanke didn't get angry because he cared about Gong Coco, but everyone could see the anger in his eyes. This kind of thing is unforgivable. If it weren't for him, Xiaowan wouldn't have died. He's wronged too many people. I'll never forgive him in this lifetime. Jiang Hanjing felt that Gong Coco had the right to know about these things, so she said. When I found out that he was with my sister behind my back, I was also very angry. But Xiaowan's incident was just an accident. Now that he's about to die, I'm only here to see him one last time. She paused. Seeing that Jiang Shanke didn't have any intention to continue, she sighed. He's about to die. If you really don't want to see him, I'll go by myself. Jiang Shanke's expression became even more frightening. You want to go alone to see that woman and her child? His mother had a weak personality and might be bullied by that mother and child. How could he let her go alone? Jiang Hanjing nodded. Her attitude was firm. After all, we're husband and wife. I want to see him. It wasn't because of love or anything. She was just doing her last bit of kindness. Seeing her like this, what else could Jiang Shanke say? He endured and endured. After all, he couldn't lock his own mother up. Fine. I'll go with you then. Gong Coco watched from the side with wide eyes. Jiang Hanjing's originally gloomy mood suddenly felt much better when she saw her clear eyes. Kiki, do you want to go with me? No. Jiang Shanke firmly objected. Kiki has nothing to do with that person. He doesn't deserve you to see him. Gong Coco was a little unwilling. She pouted but didn't say anything. Jiang Hanjing saw this and smiled gently. There are no secrets between husband and wife. You love her, so you should let her face it with you. Jiang Shanke was stunned. Only then did he look at Gong Coco. Seeing her eager expression and bright eyes looking at him, his cold heart suddenly softened. Well, there was nothing that he couldn't let her know. Chapter 946. Once the decision was made, Jiang Shanke wanted to get it over with as soon as possible. The next day, while Gong Coco was out of the picture, he took his wife and mother to visit them. On the way, the couple did not ride in the same car as Jiang Shanke. Jiang Hanjing also guessed that Jiang Shanke had something to say, so she did not disturb him. Jiang Shanke thought for a whole night before he came up with the words. He held Gong Coco's hand and said, "Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous." "I'm not nervous." Gong Coco looked at Jiang Shanke's tense expression and asked with a smile, "Hurry up and tell me the truth. What's wrong with your father?" Jiang Shanke's eyes dimmed slightly. "That's not my father. My father died a long time ago." Gong Coco saw his sad expression and asked in a low voice, "What did he do?" Jiang Shanke sneered. "He did too many things. So much so that he felt ashamed to say it out loud." Gong Coco sat beside him and held his hand tightly. "It's okay. You have me." Jiang Shanke smiled gently. Gong Coco's warmth passed through his fingertips and made him feel much better. He said softly, Jiang Shanke was born in Jiangnan. Because my grandparents took good care of her, she was very innocent. When she was in her 20s, she fell in love with a man at first sight and quickly married him. That man was also a well-known figure in Hadian City. My grandparents were very relieved when they passed away because he was very good to my mother. This memory was still very beautiful. But then, Jiang Shanke's expression changed. After giving birth to me, my mother's health suddenly deteriorated. In order to fulfill her wish of having a daughter, our family adopted a girl. Everything was normal at first, but when I was 7 years old, my mother's so-called sister came, and everything changed. Jiang Shanke sneered. That woman's name is Jiang Xian. She's the daughter of my grandfather's old friend. In the Jiang family, she has always been the second daughter of the Jiang family. When she got married, my grandfather even prepared a generous dowry for her. However, after my grandfather and grandmother passed away, her husband died as well. Her in-laws were very powerful and powerful. My mother's heart softened and she brought her and her son to her home. Gong Coco had a strange expression on her face. And then she had an affair with your father. Jiang Shanke sneered. It's too simple. Jiang Xian and that man had known each other for a long time, but that man's family looked down on Jiang Xian because she was an orphan. That's why that man married my mother. But at that time, my mother and I didn't expect that Jiang Xian's son was that man's biological son. He's 2 years older than me. This matter could be said to be the greatest humiliation of his life. Thinking back to the time when he was very sympathetic to this brother of his who was living in his house and tolerated him in every way, the other party must have laughed at him in his heart for being stupid. Gong Coco was stunned. Then your father, he married your mother on purpose. No matter how I look at it, it was premeditated long ago. Not only that. Jiang Shanke's expression was gloomy and cold, his whole body emitting a cold aura that couldn't be dispersed. Not long after my mother gave birth to me, my maternal grandparents passed away. Coincidentally, my mother also fell ill and couldn't have children anymore. I'm afraid all of this was done by that man. He clenched his fists so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. Gong Coco couldn't help but hug him in her arms to comfort him. It's okay, it's all in the past. Anyway, he's going to die soon, isn't he? Jiang Shanke closed his eyes. I'm just a little angry. Why did my mother want to see him for the last time? People like him deserve to die. Gong Coco understood his sadness. The originally happy family was all an illusion. His original cousin had become his biological brother. A good husband and father had turned into a scheming devil. This kind of change was unacceptable. So you took your mother's surname? Gong Coco suddenly asked. What's that man's surname? At this moment, the chauffeur's voice came from the phone. Young master, we've arrived. Gong Coco saw Jiang Shanke's expression become terrifying. If it wasn't to protect his mother, he wouldn't have come to such a place, right? Gong Coco saw that Jiang Shanke seemed to be restraining himself. She couldn't help but hold his hand and lead him out of the car. Jiang Hanjing had already gotten out of the car. The female owner of the mansion was talking to her. Jiang Hanjing said coldly. I'm just here to see him for the last time. I'll leave after seeing him. Jiang Xian's eyes flashed when she heard that, but she still said with a smile, all right, let's go in then. At this moment, a man strode in front of Jiang Shanke, but his eyes were fixed on Gong Coco. Little cutie, we meet again. Gong Coco widened her eyes. In the next second, Jiang Shanke stood in front of her to protect her. Wen Pingqiu, if you don't want me to do anything in your Wen family, you'd better behave yourself. Gong Coco was stunned. So Wenpingqiu was Jiang Shanka's brother. No wonder they acted like enemies when they met. So this was the reason. Wenpingqiu raised his eyebrows. My family doesn't welcome you. Jiang Shanka sneered. If Wen Jiping didn't invite my mother, do you think I'd want to step into such a filthy place? Wenpingqiu's eyes flashed with anger. Then let's invite young Master Jiang in to take a look. This place isn't filthy at all. Jiang Shanka pulled Gong Coco inside. Gong Coco turned around and saw Wenpingqiu smiling at her. Initially, she didn't have much ill feelings towards Wenpingqiu. However, now that she knew who he was, Gong Coco snorted and even made a face. Meanwhile, Jiang Hanjing had already met Wen Jiping. Wen Jiping's eyes lit up when he saw Jiang Hanjing. He was only 50 years old, but his hair was white and he looked old. It was obvious that he hadn't had a good time all these years. Jiang Hanjing sat beside him, looking like his daughter. She was very calm. Jiang Axayan originally thought that Jiang Hanjing would be filled with resentment, but she was so quiet that it was as if she was looking at a stranger. Wen Jiping's eyes flashed with regret. If he hadn't been blind and insisted on being with Jiang Axayan, he wouldn't have ended up like this in his prime. Thinking of this, a trace of hatred flashed in his eyes, but he quickly concealed it. Jiang Hanjing said softly, "You insisted that I come to see you for the last time. All right, I'm here. What do you want to say?" Perhaps she had loved and hated when she was young, but her son was already so old. She had already gotten over it. Especially in the past few years, she often went out to relax. She was no longer the timid Jiang Hanjing of the past. Wen Jiping wanted to say something, but he coughed a few times first. Jiang Axayan was serving him closely, looking very considerate. "Jiping, take your time. Don't rush." Wen Jiping glanced at Jiang Axayan, but a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes. Then, he looked at Jiang Hanjing and asked in a hoarse voice, "Why isn't little Ku here?" Jiang Shanka heard Wen Jiping's voice and pushed the door open. At that moment, the disgust in his eyes was undisguised. "Tell me, you're about to die. Why do you still want to see my mother? Haven't you harmed her enough?" Chapter 947. When he saw Jiang Shanka, Wen Jiping coughed violently. He stared at Jiang Shanka with shining eyes, as if he was his only hope. Can you let me speak to little Ku alone?" Jiang Shanka wanted to reject him, but he didn't expect Jiang Axayan to reject him first. "Hubby, you can't leave your body. Let me stay and take care of you." Jiang Shanka looked away. He didn't want to see Jiang Axayan's gentle and demure look. Gong Coco, who was standing at the side, suddenly noticed that when Jiang Axayan spoke, Wen Jiping's hand unconsciously tightened as if he was afraid of something. She revealed a thoughtful expression, but she didn't expose him on the spot. Wen Jiping asked a few more times, but he was rejected by Jiang Shanka. However, Jiang Shanka hated this person and didn't want to listen to him. After Jiang Hanjing said a few more words, he wanted to take her away. "Jing Jing." When Wen Jiping saw that Jiang Hanjing was about to leave, he suddenly called her by her nickname. Jiang Shanka immediately pulled Jiang Hanjing behind him. He said angrily, "You don't have the right to call me that." After that, he coldly glanced at everyone in the room and immediately left with Jiang Hanjing and Gong Coco. Before they left, Gong Coco turned around and saw the despair in Wen Jiping's eyes. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but only a few broken sounds came out. Jiang Shanka had already left. After they left, Jiang Hanjing said thoughtfully in the car, "I feel like he has something to say. If Jiang Hanjing could see it, how could Jiang Shanka not see it?" Jiang Shanka said in a low voice, "No matter what he wants to say, we don't need to know." Jiang Hanjing didn't say anything. Gong Coco realized that Jiang Shanke really hated Wen Jipping. The more he hated Wen Jipping, the more it proved that he had once looked forward to it. Gong Coco guessed that Jiang Shanke must have admired Wen Jipping a lot when he was young. Gong Kiki was right. When Jiang Shanke was young, he thought that he was the happiest person in the world. He had a gentle mother and an elegant and powerful father. That was why he felt so much pain when everything was shattered. That was why he didn't want to mention Wen Jipping at all. After returning home, Jiang Shanke went to handle the company's affairs. The Jiang family's current achievements was all because of Jiang Shanke. At that time, he and Jiang Hanjing could be said to have left with nothing. If it weren't for the family's ancestral property, they might have been reduced to the streets and had to start their own business. Jiang Hanjing could forgive all of this, but he definitely couldn't, not even if he had to die. Gong Coco saw that Jiang Shanke was full of anger. She had never seen Jiang Shanke so angry before. She quietly walked over and hugged Jiang Shanke's neck from behind. Jiang Shanke's body stiffened. He only relaxed when he felt that it was Gong Coco. "Are you still angry?" Gong Coco's soft voice was like heavenly music that could calm people's hearts. Jiang Shanke gradually calmed down. He looked at the sky outside and saw that it was already dark. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" His voice softened. "Don't wait for me. I still have something to do. I'll be fine after I'm done." Gong Coco kissed him on the cheek and said coquettishly, "I can't sleep without you hugging me," she mumbled. "It's almost 1 o'clock. Why aren't you coming to accompany me? I'm going to be angry. Can't you deal with these things tomorrow?" It wasn't that he couldn't. Jiang Shanke just wanted to keep himself busy. He sighed and turned his head to kiss Gong Coco gently. "All right, I really don't know what to do with you. Go to bed and wait for me. I'll come after I wash up." Gong Coco nodded. She was only relieved when she saw Jiang Shanke go to the bathroom. Jiang Shanke was unwilling. As his wife, how could she help him? In the middle of the night, Gong Coco secretly climbed the wall. She felt that this matter couldn't be so vague. Wen Jipping looked like a lamp that had run out of oil. Perhaps it would happen in the next 2 days. Some secrets couldn't be brought to the grave. The Wen family's security was quite tight. Fortunately, Gong Coco had already figured out some of the modern security devices. She quietly sneaked into the Wen family's house and went straight to Wen Jipping's room. Strangely, it was already 3 o'clock, but the light in his room was still on. Jiang Xan's voice came from inside. "Old Wen, I don't want to criticize you. Why can't you differentiate between good and bad? I've been so good to you and took care of you so considerately. Why don't you care about our past relationship at all?" Wen Jipping groaned in pain. He couldn't speak a complete word for a long time. Jiang Xan smiled gently. "Are you feeling terrible? If you're feeling terrible, then go and die. Why aren't you dead yet? Jiang Hanjing won't come again. What's the point of holding on to your last breath?" Wen Jipping's violent coughs came from inside, followed by the sound of things being knocked over. Gong Coco looked inside curiously. She saw that Jiang Xan was stabbing Wen Jipping with needles. Gong Coco's pupils shrank. In Daiyu State's palace, especially in Zhao prison, there were many ways to kill people without spilling blood. Most of them were tools for torturing people. Wen Jipping was clearly on his last breath. Why was Jiang Xan still torturing him? Those needles were as thin as hair. There was no blood when they pierced the body, but it was very painful. Wen Jipping's eyes were white, and he looked like he was about to die. Although Gong Coco didn't have a good impression of Wen Jipping, she hated Jiang Xan for torturing a patient like this. Therefore, the pearl in her hand shot out and hit Jiang Xan's acupuncture point. She fell to the ground weakly with a ferocious expression. She had made a lot of preparations along the way. Not only did she knock out the people in the surveillance room and the patrolling guards, she even covered the cameras to ensure that they wouldn't know who she was. Her sudden appearance gave Wen Jipping a fright. When he realized who Gong Coco was, he revealed a look of disbelief. It was as if he was saying, "Did Jiang Shanke send you here?" Gong Coco frowned and carefully removed the needles from his body. In order to let him speak more smoothly, she even channeled a lot of inner energy into his body. This made Wen Jipping's eyes brighten. He looked at Gong Coco as if he was looking at a treasure. "Aren't you the head of the Wen family? Why are you being tortured by your wife?" Gong Coco asked curiously. Hearing this, Wen Jipping coldly looked at Jiang Xan on the ground. "You're so powerful. Can you help me kill this woman?" Gong Coco didn't expect Wen Jipping to ask her to kill someone. She shook her head. She remembered that this was a society ruled by law. Moreover, Jiang Shanke told her last time that there were many ways to kill someone without spilling blood. Moreover, Jiang Xan didn't defend her, so why would she do this? Wen Jipping's eyes dimmed, and then he said, "It's Little Ko." Gong Coco shook her head and said truthfully, "I wanted to come. I felt that you seemed to have something to say. I'm Jiang Shanke's wife. He has a deep hatred for you, but I was afraid that you had something important to say, so I came." Chapter 949. Gong Coco nodded and saw Wen Jipping close his eyes. She was stunned. She reached out and found that Wen Jipping was already dead. It turned out that he had been holding on so that he could live to finish these words, change his will, apologize, and get someone to avenge him. He didn't have the chance before, but after Gong Coco came, he could finally be at ease. His body had long been exhausted. It was no wonder that he had aged so much in a year after being tortured like that every day. Gong Coco looked at the photo at the side. It was Wen Jipping's appearance before he fell ill. He was completely different from the old man in front of her. Gong Coco got up and wanted to hand all of this to Jiang Shanke. However, as soon as she got up, she saw Wen Pingqiu behind her. Gong Coco immediately became alert. It was all her fault for being so focused that she didn't notice Wen Pingqiu's arrival. Tears fell from Wen Pingqiu's face. He looked at Gong Coco in disbelief. "All of this is actually like this. My mother, she actually did such a terrible thing to my father." Gong Coco was stunned. She didn't expect Wen Pingqiu to have such a reaction. Before she could say anything, Wen Pingqiu covered his face and cried softly. His heartbroken look made Gong Coco hesitate. How should she put it? Since Wen Jipping had handed the company to Wen Pingqiu, it meant that Wen Jipping knew that all of this had nothing to do with Wen Pingqiu. However, he was still implicated. After all, other than the company and this mansion, he didn't leave anything else to Wen Pingqiu. Gong Coco walked over and saw Wen Pingqiu crying at the door. She couldn't help but ask, "Then what do you want to do?" Wen Pingqiu heard this and let go of his hand. His handsome face was full of tears and he looked really sad. His bloodshot eyes slowly looked at Jiang Xan and then at Wen Jipping. Finally, he gritted his teeth. I will send my mother to court. Even if I don't want to, I have to do this." After he said that, he smiled bitterly. "I actually lost both my parents in one night. Why did they do this to me?" When Gong Coco heard this, her vigilant body gradually relaxed. Her mother and father had also left, so she understood this pain very well. She still had a chance to see them, but Wen Pingqiu didn't have a chance. At this moment, she was suddenly in Wen Pingqiu's arms. Her body stiffened. She wanted to push him away, but when Pingqiu cried and said, "Can you let me lean on you? I'm sorry, I have no one else I can rely on, just this once." Gong Keek's hand paused, and when Pingqiu hugged her tightly. "Why do you think she's so evil? Isn't it just money? Just give the Jiang family's shares to the Wen family. Although the Wen family is not as powerful as before, we can still live a good life. Why did she do this? Doesn't she miss me at all? Didn't she know that all I wanted was a happy family? Why did she have to ruin everything? Why is that it leaving me alone in this world?" Gong Coco couldn't answer Wen Pingqiu's question. She was a little soft-hearted. After her parents left, she still had her brother. Although she hated Wen Pingqiu, he was indeed very pitiful at this moment because he had no family left. Therefore, she said, "Don't be sad. Yes, people are greedy. Just don't be like your mother." Wen Pingqiu continued to sob, his voice heartbroken. "You're right. I can't be like my mother. She's too stupid." Gong Coco was stunned, but the needle in Wen Pingqiu's hand had already been inserted into Gong Coco's shoulder. Gong Coco pushed Wen Pingqiu away reflexively, only to see Wen Pingqiu crying and smiling strangely. "Don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too kind. Do you think I'm very pitiful? My cute Kiki, I really can't bear to kill you." Gong Coco pulled out the needle on her back, but there were double images in front of her. It was impossible. Even if the drug could make 10 elephants faint, it couldn't make her faint. Wen Pingqiu approached step by step. Gong Coco wanted to reach out to stop him, but she couldn't. Her phone was snatched away by Wen Pingqiu. He wiped his tears and glanced at Wen Jipping. "I'm so touched. He still remembers me even when he's dying. But what he doesn't know is that I asked my mother to do all of this. Back then, how did Jiang Shanke chase me out of this city? I want to return what I've suffered tenfold." As he spoke, he looked at Gong Coco regretfully. "Originally, I liked you very much and wanted to marry you after defeating Jiang Shanke. But who asked you to be so curious? It must be very uncomfortable, right? I know you're different from ordinary people. Last time, Wang Baichuan's strong sexual desire didn't make you faint. This time, I'm considerate and increased the dosage." Gong Coco kept retreating. The images in front of her became heavier and heavier. Wen Pingqiu's voice seemed to come from the horizon. She was still too young. She actually fell for Wen Pingqiu's trick. Wen Jipping took out a fruit knife and said with a smile, "Do you want to know the ending after you die? That is, you kill your father, and your mother loses control and kills you. Then, she commits suicide to avoid punishment. I lose my parents, but I inherit all of their assets. Then, I'll defeat Jiang Shanke with my godfather and become the final winner. What do you think of this design?" As he spoke, he suddenly stabbed at Gong Coco. At the last moment, Gong Coco's body suddenly exploded with a burst of air. Wen Pingqiu was pushed away and slammed into the bookshelf. Gong Coco's mind was slightly clearer. She hurriedly stumbled out. Fortunately, when she came, she knocked out the people outside, so she was unimpeded. However, her head was getting dizzier and her footsteps were getting heavier. Especially her body, it was very painful. Gong Coco had never been in such pain in her life. With every step she took, the pain increased. She was very afraid of pain, and her eyes couldn't help but tear up. If it was any other time, she definitely wouldn't walk anymore. It would only worsen the decline of her body. But this time, she didn't know why, but she didn't stop. She ran in one direction with all her might, even if every step was like stepping on the edge of a knife. She wanted to go back. She must tell Jiang Shanke that there were bad people around him who were colluding with Wenpingqiu. She must tell him. However, when she passed by the Haitian Canal, a group of people stopped her. When the three delinquents saw Gong Coco's exquisite appearance but delirious state, they couldn't help but have lustful thoughts. Plus, this was the suburbs, so they became even more daring. On the bridge, one person blocked Gong Coco's path, while the other two blocked her retreat. They approached her with lewd smiles. "What a beautiful girl. It's so late. Where are you going?" Gong Coco had no ability to resist at this time. The drug that Wenpingqiu gave her was enough to poison all the horses in the horse farm. Her hand attacked the other party, but in fact, it was just soft. The other party caught her hand and caressed her hand wantonly. "Damn, your skin is so smooth and tender." Chapter 950. Although Gong Coco was unconscious, she was still angry. "Don't touch me." She struggled with all her might, but how could she be a match for the three hooligans? They touched her all over, but she had no strength to resist. That humiliation made Gong Coco want to chop them into pieces. She would rather die than be tainted by these people. With this thought, she bit her tongue hard and used all her strength to push them away. But because she used too much strength, she fell towards the bridge. "Be careful." The hooligan who had been holding her hand saw that she was about to fall and quickly called for help. But Gong Coco had been running for so long that her hands were sweaty. The hooligan couldn't hold on to her at all. Gong Coco fell into the water, and he only managed to take off the ring on Gong Coco's finger. Oh no! There was a power plant in front of them, and the water flow here was especially fast. Gong Coco disappeared the moment she fell. The other two immediately woke up. Originally, they only wanted to rob her, but now, that girl wouldn't die, right? "Let's go. Anyway, there are no surveillance cameras here. Let's just pretend that she fell down by herself. Anyway, she's unconscious as if she's on drugs. It has nothing to do with us." The other two quickly nodded, and then the three of them ran away in a panic. Jiang Shanke, Jiang Shanke. In a daze, Jiang Shanke suddenly woke up. Gong Coco was discovered the last time she slipped away in the middle of the night, so before she left this time, she purposely rubbed Jiang Shanke's sleeping acupoint to make him sleep even deeper. He was supposed to wake up tomorrow afternoon, but he woke up inexplicably because he felt that Gong Coco was calling him. But when he woke up, Gong Coco was nowhere to be seen. Jiang Shanke was shocked. He quickly got up and picked up his phone to call Gong Coco. As expected, she had turned off her phone. Jiang Shanke then checked Gong Coco's tracking address. The ring was the token of their engagement, and Gong Coco would definitely not lose it. Then, he saw that the location indicated by the ring was in the suburbs. That place was very close to the Wen family's house. Jiang Shanke's eyes narrowed, and he hurriedly asked someone to go out. Jiang Hanjing heard the commotion and came out, and asked, "Xiao Ku, what's wrong?" But Jiang Shanke didn't reply, and ran away with a cold face. He had always felt uneasy. He had felt this kind of uneasiness before, but it had never been this serious. He was flustered. He complained that the driver was driving too slow, so he pushed the driver, and stepped on the accelerator pedal. The car's speed was over 200 kilometers per hour. Everyone in the car was scared out of their wits. Dawn had already broken over the horizon. They could only see the scenery in the distance rapidly retreating. The trees that were still far away a second ago were already far behind them in the next second. If there was a car accident, everyone would die. But Jiang Shanke couldn't slow down. He felt that his current speed was too slow, and something was leaving him. The coordinates of the ring kept moving. Originally, the few hooligans were afraid that the police would investigate them, so they wanted to throw it into the water. But when they saw the diamond on the ring, although they didn't know how to appraise it, they could tell that it was a good item. So, they couldn't resist the temptation and decided to sell it. But before they could sell it, they were blocked by a group of people. Hundreds of people in black uniforms surrounded them. Jiang Shanke got out of the car and saw that the coordinates of the ring were actually 3 men. His face became gloomier. The ruthless coldness made the 3 men not dare to look at Jiang Shanke, and they felt that a great disaster was coming. Young master, the ring. One of the bodyguards handed the ring to Jiang Shanke. Jiang Shanke held it in his palm. His eyes seemed to be able to see through these people. Where did you get it? They originally wanted to lie, but at this moment, they had completely abandoned the idea of lying. They fell to their knees and explained everything. Jiang Shanke's chest heaved violently. These people actually wanted to take advantage of Keek's condition to intercept her. His eyes were bloodthirsty as he sneered, "Leave a few of them. Break their limbs, pull out their tongues, and throw them in jail. The rest of you, follow me." As he spoke, the group of people quickly walked towards the canal. On the way, Jiang Shanke coldly made several phone calls, calling for boats and planes to salvage the goods. His voice didn't change, but his hands were trembling. "It's fine. Kiki knows martial arts and can swim. Even if she's drugged, it's fine." It's fine. But not long after he reached the canal, he received a call from the police. "Mr. Jiang, I'm sorry to disturb you, but your wife has been charged with murder and absconding. We can't contact your wife, so we can only ask for your assistance in the investigation." Jiang Shanke, who had been standing by the canal for 2 hours, spoke stiffly. "Murder? Who?" "When corporation CEO's wife, Jiang Xian." Jiang Shanke suddenly sneered. "Is she dead?" The other party was stunned for a moment. "She's dying." "Very good. Come and find me when she's dead." With that, Jiang Shanke hung up the phone. His eyes stared blankly at the lake. No one knew what he was thinking. It was as if he had frozen into a stone. He was thinking, and his lonely back seemed to be filled with despair. At this moment, in the hospital, Jiang Xian was on her deathbed. "It's Gong Coco. It's Gong Coco who harmed me." She had been stabbed several times and her heart was cut. There was no saving her. She had been injected with anesthetics, and after she woke up from the anesthesia, she was awakened by the pain. Then, he saw a tear-stained Wenpingqiu. At this moment, they were on their way to the hospital. When he saw that Jiang Xian had woken up, he showed her the video that Gong Coco had recorded. He also told her that if he had not arrived in time, Gong Coco would have killed her on the spot. Jiang Xian was furious. Even though her wounds had been treated urgently, she could still feel her life draining away. She had held on to her hatred until the police arrived at the hospital. Faced with Jiang Xian's accusation and Gong Coco's phone, the police were also in a difficult position. They first brought some people to the Jiang family, but they could not find her. Then, they called Jiang Shanke. "Pingqiu. Pingqiu." Feeling that she was really going to die, Jiang Xian looked at Wenpingqiu and said, "Help me take revenge. Help me kill them." Wenpingqiu naturally knew who she was referring to. She nodded while choking with sobs. Then, Jiang Xian died with her eyes wide open. The police and nurses offered her condolences. Wenpingqiu ran out crying, saying that he needed some peace and quiet. On the rooftop, the doctor stood behind him with a face full of fear. At this moment, Wenpingqiu's face was still covered in tears. He said in a sorrowful voice, "You're a professional. You should have wiped away all traces, right?" The doctor nodded uneasily. He was extremely terrified. He had seen Wenpingcho kill his mother with his own eyes, and then he was forced to clean up the aftermath. Because Wenpingcho had told him that if he did not clean up all the details, he could only wait to collect his family's corpses. Only then did he realize how scary this usually smiling man was. Chapter 951. The police had no choice but to search for Gong Coco's whereabouts after receiving the proper answers from the family doctor, Jiang Xian's confession before her death, and Gong Coco's phone, which had been completely destroyed. Then, they received news that Gong Coco had fallen into the water and disappeared. As there were almost no surveillance cameras in the suburbs, the police had no evidence even if they wanted to suspect Jiang Shanke of harboring the culprit. Hence, the matter was stuck in a stalemate. The only thing that remained unchanged was that Jiang Shanke had been searching by the canal day after day, as if he had gone mad. Wenpingcho was wantonly arranging the funerals of his two loved ones while keeping an eye on Jiang Shanke's movements. He could not help but laugh contemptuously when he saw that Jiang Shanke seemed to have lost his soul. That's good too. I'll take your life while you're sick. You'll be able to reunite with your beloved wife when you go to the netherworld. Initially, Wenpingcho thought that he had been too impulsive when he killed Gong Coco. However, when he learned that Gong Coco had fallen into the water, he felt as if he had eaten a ginseng fruit. The water could erase any traces he had left on Gong Coco's body, including the toxins. It seemed that the god of luck was on his side. Jiang Shanke could not help but lose weight. Even when Jiang Hanjing came in person, she could not make him shift his gaze. Jiang Hanjing's face was covered in tears. In the end, she said that the Wen family was holding a funeral today. Jiang Shanke's empty eyes flashed, but Jiang Hanjing felt as if she had seen a glimmer of hope. Although the funeral will be held at the same time, only Wen Jiping will be buried. Jiang Xian's body will be sealed and can only be buried when Coco is found. Jiang Hanjing regretted her decision to see Wen Jiping for the last time. If she had not gone, the things that happened later would not have happened. She did not know why Gong Coco had gone to the Wen family's house in the middle of the night. However, the most important thing now was to cheer Jiang Shanke up. Unexpectedly, Jiang Shanke suddenly spoke. Funeral, he looked at the lake and suddenly revealed a strange smile. However, the madness and malice in his eyes made the people around him shudder. He pulled his sleeves and said in a low voice, "Prepare the car. I'm going to attend the funeral." Jiang Hanjing was stunned at first, but when she saw that Jiang Shanke was finally willing to leave the lake, she quickly gave the order. God knew how afraid she was that Jiang Shanke would jump into the lake. Jiang Shanke glanced at the lake before he left. He had searched hundreds of miles along the waterway, issued a 10 million bounty, and sent people to look for her along the way. There were only two possibilities if he couldn't find her. One was when she met a bad guy and didn't even have a corpse left. But the other was that she went back. An indescribable pain jolted Jiang Shanke's soul. He was to breathe to be to die too. If she went back, then, she would return, would she? Ku-s, Jiang s, to him, tus, of Coco. Coco-s, Jiang Hanjing said uneasily, "Little Ku, your current appearance." Jiang Shanke's appearance was not messy at all. Instead, it was very neat, as if he was solemnly waiting for someone to return. However, his eye sockets had sunk in over the past few days. His eyes were dark and bloodshot. When he looked at people, the redness in his eyes made people feel like they were being stared at by a starving beast. A chill ran down their spine. That was what Jiang Shanke was feeling. Jiang Shanke glanced at her and closed his eyes to rest. However, Jiang Hanjing could feel the hatred in Jiang Shanke's heart. He actually hated his own mother because of Gong Coco. It was because of her actions that indirectly caused Gong Keek's disappearance that even she was hated. However, Jiang Shanke would definitely not do anything to Jiang Hanjing. The reason why Gong Coco visited the Wen family at night was mainly because of him. Because he refused to listen to Wen Jiping's last words, she was afraid that there was a conspiracy behind this matter that would hurt him. That was why she went to ask about it. Who knew that the Wen family was such a purgatory? Jiang Shanke sneered. He wanted to see what kind of dragon's pool or tiger's den the Wen family was that they dared to hurt his woman. Wen Pingqiu received guests at the door with a sorrowful expression. His experience had gained the sympathy of many people. Moreover, he played the role of a filial son vividly. His red and swollen eyes and thin body made many women feel sorry for him. A young lady from an aristocratic family was comforting Wen Pingqiu. Wen Pingqiu's eyes were filled with gratitude and gentleness. "I'm grateful to be comforted by you. My heart feels much better." The young lady blushed. Just as she was about to speak, she saw Wen Pingqiu's expression suddenly change. It was not the melancholic and sorrowful look from before. Instead, it was a cold and bloodthirsty gaze, like that of a poisonous snake. The young lady was shocked. When she turned around, she saw the equally terrifying Jiang Shanke dressed in black. Although Jiang Shanke was distant, he was also famous for being a gentleman. Very few people saw him like this. His malicious and fierce gaze made the people in front of the door retreat. The cold aura from his body made the entire place extremely oppressive. Everyone looked at each other. They did not know why Jiang Shanke was here. Everyone knew that the Jiang family and the Wen family were mortal enemies. Moreover, they were now involved in a lawsuit. Wen Pingqiu was the first to react. He forced a smile and said, "Today, everyone who comes is a guest. Young Master Jiang, this way please." Jiang Shanke glanced at him. Without saying a word, he led his people in. That cold and arrogant gaze made everyone guess that Jiang Shanke was here to seek revenge today. Wen Pingqiu's gaze changed for a moment. Then, he led Jiang Shanke inside. On the way, Jiang Shanke suddenly said, "Your acting is very good. I'm afraid that the people who came today are starting to sympathize with you." Wen Pingqiu did not target him as usual. Instead, he kept subservient to himself. "I don't understand what you mean, young Master Jiang. I lost 2 of my closest relatives in one night. Since you're here today, please put aside those grudges for the time being so as not to disturb the souls of the deceased." When everyone heard this, they looked over subtly, as if they were afraid that Jiang Shanke would bully Wen Pingqiu. Jiang Shanke sneered. "I know Keek's skills the best. If it weren't for some people tricking her, she would never have let others get her phone." He stopped in his tracks and looked deeply into Wen Pingqiu's eyes with murderous intent. "I don't know what she took that made someone so nervous. Not only did she delete it, but she also destroyed the phone. Do you think that this is flawless?" Wen Pingqiu's expression was dark and unclear. Why was Jiang Shanke's guess so accurate? It was as if he had seen it with his own eyes. "If young Master Jiang is here to cause trouble, then forgive me for not accompanying you." Wen Pingqiu pursed his lips and turned to leave. However, he heard Jiang Shanke say, "You still don't know, right? Kiki has a necklace around her neck. It's a miniature video recorder. If it's something important, do you think she would use her phone and the necklace to record it?" Chapter 952. Wen Pingqiu was shocked. Gong Coco had other recording devices on her. He carefully recalled that Gong Coco's back was facing him, so he wasn't sure what Gong Coco had done. He only knew that she had raised her phone high and was recording Wen Jiping. Seeing that Wen Pingqiu was silent, Jiang Shanke laughed. His laughter was chilling. Once the necklace is activated, it'll automatically read it. When there's insufficient power, it'll shut down and send the recorded video to my personal computer regularly. Although it'll take a few days to receive the recording, I'm very curious about what she recorded. He took a step forward and whispered into Wen Pingqiu's ear, it'll make people want to silence her. When the crowd saw Wen Pingqiu's face turn frighteningly pale, they thought that Jiang Shanke had made some terrifying threat. However, they didn't dare to fight with Jiang Shanke, so they could only watch from the side. Then, they saw Wen Pingqiu start to tremble with an expression of disbelief. Impossible, how can there be such a thing? Jiang Shanke looked at him coldly, as if he was looking at an ant. You're just ignorant. In a few days, when I receive the recording, I'll personally send you a copy. As he spoke, he strode up to the second floor. The crime scene was under police surveillance 24/7, but Jiang Shanke made a call and the two police officers at the door let him in. However, he had to wear gloves and shoe covers. After Jiang Shanke entered, his heart pounded violently. He felt that Kiki had been here, and he looked at the surveillance camera in the room. It was no longer working. The police said that the surveillance camera was covered with a black cloth. Jiang Shanke thought to himself that if Kiki had been a little more careful when she left, she wouldn't have let black cloth continue to stay here. A dim light flashed through his eyes. Everything in the room described the scene at that time. Why did Kiki leave in such a hurry? Because she was injured. Why was she injured? She knew martial arts, and when she came in, she had knocked out all the Wen family members who were on night duty. Who could hurt her? Only Wen Pingqiu. Jiang Shanke's eyes flashed with killing intent. He looked at the bloodstains on the ground and wished he could pull out Wen Pingqiu's tendons and skin him alive. Wen Pingqiu must have lied to her. Moreover, Kiki wasn't someone who would kill. That meant that Wen Pingqiu might have killed her biological mother with her own hands. Unfortunately, what he said before was just to scare Wen Pingqiu. Coco's necklace had a memory function, but it didn't have a transmission function. So what? He had almost seen what had happened. The only explanation for Wen Pingqiu's madness was the benefits. And his threat was enough to make him panic. When Jiang Shanke came downstairs, the guests who came to offer their condolences came forward one by one, while Wen Pingqiu stood at the side and returned their greetings. Seeing Wen Jiping's peaceful appearance, Jiang Shanke was clearly relieved of his worries. On the other hand, Jiang Xian's face was much more distorted. Even the heavy makeup couldn't adjust her stiff muscles. Just one look at her was enough to give people nightmares. Seeing Jiang Shanke walk step by step toward the corpse, everyone was worried that he would do something extreme. His current appearance was too aggressive, as if he was on the verge of breaking down. However, he only glanced at the corpse and suddenly smiled. Smash this place. Before anyone could react, hundreds of bodyguards had already walked out of the crowd and started to wreak havoc. Amidst the sharp and panicked screams, Wen Pingqiu's exasperated voice could be heard. Jiang Shanke. What are you doing? Are you crazy? The huge chandelier smashed down, causing countless sparkling fragments. Wen Pingqiu's voice was immediately drowned out by the noisy cries. Everyone couldn't leave even if they wanted to because Jiang Shanke's men had already blocked the entire hall. The bodyguards outside couldn't enter, and the people inside couldn't leave either. Wen Pingqiu angrily walked over and wanted to grab Jiang Shanke's collar, but before she could touch him, she was blocked by the bodyguards. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "I know you're angry with Dad, but you don't have to do such a thing at his funeral. The dead should be respected, but you don't even have the basic respect." Jiang Shanke, who was protected by the bodyguards, didn't say anything. He coldly watched the crowd in the hall flee, and the sharp screams were endless. Until there was nothing left to smash in the hall. Only then did Jiang Shanka sweep his gaze across the embarrassed crowd and let go of Wenpingqiu, who wanted to beat him up. Everyone, you've been frightened. His smiling voice was filled with boundless coldness, causing the frightened people to not dare to say anything in front of him. Many girls and women looked at Jiang Shanka with red eyes, as if he was a devil. Why did you do that? A man in a white shirt was splashed with red wine. He was scared out of his wits just now, but now that he came back to his senses, he knew how to interrogate him. Jiang Shanka smiled coldly and looked at the debris on the ground with indescribable joy. I was just conveying a message. His tall and straight figure seemed to be indestructible in the hall that had been swept by a strong wind. He swept his sharp eyes across the hall. From today onwards, everyone who is on good terms with Wenpingqiu is my enemy. 7 years ago, I could drive him out of Hayden City. 7 years later, I don't mind sending a group of people away. His cadence was powerful. Jiang Shanka actually used such a method to announce his hostility at someone else's funeral. Was he crazy? Wenpingqiu's eyes were almost bleeding. Jiang Shanka dared to be so unscrupulous because he knew that in a few days, the video from Gong Coco's necklace would send the Wen family to eternal damnation. No, this definitely couldn't happen. He wanted to stop him, but Jiang Shanka looked at him with a contemptuous attitude. You will suffer my reckless revenge. I will let you know that there are some people you shouldn't touch. After that, he curled his lips slightly and walked out with a large group of people. Jiang Hanjing had been in the car and didn't go in. At this time, she was a little surprised to see Jiang Shanka come out so quickly. What's wrong, little Ko? Did someone say something bad behind your back? You're just here to mourn the deceased. Don't take it to heart. We just need to believe that Coco isn't that kind of person. Jiang Shanka loosened his tie and smiled a little frighteningly. No, the Wen family's funeral was very well organized. I liked it very much. I'll ask them to organize another one. At first, Jiang Hanjing didn't understand Jiang Shanka's meaning. After she understood, she immediately felt fear. Had their family and the Wen family fallen into a situation where they would fight to the death? And just as Jiang Shanka had guessed, when Gong Kiki woke up, she saw a blue sky and a short fishing village. She raised her head, and everything before her didn't have the slightest hint of modernity. She had actually transmigrated back. Chapter 953. Gong Coco climbed up wet. Soon, some fishermen found her. She didn't expect that less than 15 minutes after she came ashore, an orderly army ran towards her. Seeing Gong Coco's appearance, they knelt down on one knee in surprise. Hundreds of people knelt down in unison. The leading general shouted in surprise. Princess! You're finally back. His words were a bit strange, but Gong Coco was having a headache and didn't notice. Wasn't she poisoned? Why didn't she die and come back? She looked down at her clothes. It was still a black long shirt and trousers. It proved that it wasn't a dream that she went to the modern world. Princess! Seeing that Gong Coco didn't speak, the general shouted again. Gong Coco was a bit dazed. At this moment, a man in white ran towards her quickly. Coco! The familiar voice caused Gong Kiki to be stunned. Her brain, which had been sluggish due to the drug, finally started to work. Uncle Chiu. In the next second, Gong Coco was hugged tightly by Chiu Xingfeng. The faint smell of medicine made Gong Coco's thoughts clearer. She really came back and saw Uncle Chiu. Chiu Xingfeng was obviously very happy. After he hugged her, he carefully checked Gong Coco. He didn't feel that Gong Coco was dressed strangely. He just felt that Gong Coco seemed a bit different. Yes, more beautiful. Xiao Yu said that you would come back from here. I didn't believe it. I didn't expect you to really come back. We were all worried about you. Gong Coco was very touched. She looked at the handsome face in front of her and suddenly thought of another beautiful face. Also, someone wanted to harm him. She couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Qiu Xingfeng didn't notice her strange expression and wanted to bring her back. Gong Coco pushed him away. Uncle Qiu, I want to do an experiment. Qiu Xingfeng looked at her strangely. Then, he saw Gong Coco nod and run towards the sea. The guards all cried out in alarm, especially Gong Coco, who dived into the water and never got up again. Could it be that she had taken things too hard? Without waiting for the hundreds of people to rush to the rescue, Qiu Xingfeng had already stepped lightly on the water and floated over. As soon as he arrived, Gong Coco also stuck her head out. Her eyes were full of disappointment and fear. She could not go back through the water. In the next second, Qiu Xingfeng brought her to the shore. Seeing that Gong Coco, who was fine before, suddenly lost her soul, Qiu Xingfeng couldn't think of a reason. What happened to you? Why did she look so sad? Your brother is still waiting for you. Speaking of her brother, Gong Coco finally had some reaction. A trace of bitterness flashed in her eyes. She couldn't go back now, but perhaps there would be a chance in the future. Moreover, she hadn't seen her brother for a long time. She missed him too. Let's go back. The princess's return to the palace was very grand. At this time, Gong Coco had already changed into her usual princess dress. Her beautiful black hair was half tied up, and she wore the luxurious headdress that only princesses could wear. She sat in the beautiful silk lotus sedan, holding the necklace in her hand as she pondered. She was very happy to come back because she could see her brother. But what about Jiang Shanke? He was like a sweet dream. In the end, other than this necklace, there was nothing else that represented his existence. Gong Coco closed her eyes sadly and held the necklace in her hand. Uncle Qiu said that after she went missing, her brother was very worried. But because of a dream, he believed that she would come back. Then, could she go back? Halfway through, the guards of honor suddenly stopped. Before Gong Coco could react, a bright yellow figure barged into the sedan. Seeing Gong Coco, Gong Qiu couldn't care less about the emperor's words and directly hugged her in his arms. Coco! You're finally back. Smelling the familiar scent, Gong Coco's eyes suddenly teared up. Brother! I thought I'd never see you again. Gong Qiu's chest rose and fell violently. He hugged her as if he had found a treasure. It's okay, don't be afraid. I won't let you leave again. Coco, you scared me to death. Facing such a brother, Gong Coco finally swallowed the words she wanted to say. She didn't want her brother to be sad. Jiang Shanke. Will we meet again? Jiang Shanke suddenly jumped up from the bed. He heard Gong Coco calling him, but where was she? He was in the canal and even fished up old bones, but he still couldn't find Gong Coco. Did she really go back? Would she come again? The more Jiang Shanke thought about it, the more terrified he became. He quickly made a call. The assistant was already asleep. When he saw the boss's call, he was shocked. President, what are your orders? Jiang Shanke's panicked voice came through. Do you still remember the lake I asked you to drain? Fill it up. Fill it up tomorrow. Seeing Jiang Shanke hang up, the assistant was confused. The boss called him in the middle of the night just because of a lake. He sighed. As someone close to him, he understood how fragile Jiang Shanke was under his strong appearance. During the day, he was still everyone's pillar of support, but he often had insomnia. Even after falling asleep, he would suddenly wake up and sometimes turn around in a panic as if someone was calling him. The assistant's face darkened. When he went to deliver the documents today, the boss told him in secret that the president was asleep. However, because the documents were very important, he planned to gently place them on the president's desk. Who knew that when he went in, he would see the president crying in his sleep? It was hard for him to imagine that a man in his late 30s, a man who had experienced countless ups and downs, a man whose mind was as hard as steel, would break down and cry because of the loss of a person. He couldn't understand this kind of feeling, nor could he help. He could only close the door and pretend that he didn't see anything. When he woke up, he was still their president. He could persevere because he was waiting for someone who might never appear again. During the day, Jiang Shanke had to use cigarettes to stay awake. He hadn't smoked in a long time because Coco didn't like it. However, without cigarettes now, he might not be able to maintain a clear mind. Have you found anything? The chief secretary handed the information he had found to Jiang Shanke with a serious expression. Jiang Shanke raised his eyebrows slightly. I see. When Jipping has 15% of Jiang Corporation's shares. No wonder their ambitions are inflated. Although he said it with a smile, the murderous intent in his eyes grew stronger. He was almost certain that this was all a show directed and acted by Wen Pingqiu. However, he shouldn't have made a move on Coco. So what if he didn't have any evidence against him? As long as he believed in Wen Pingqiu, he had 100 ways to make his life a living hell. Jiang Shanke crushed the documents in his hands into a ball. Continue to investigate. 15% isn't enough. He should be involved with one or more of the company's shareholders. Recently, he has been very active. It's easy to give himself away. Yes, President. Chapter 954. Gong Coco's return had alarmed the entire imperial city. Countless noble ladies were led by the imperial court's madams to enter the palace to pay a visit. Gong Coco, as the head of the noble ladies, although it was rare for her to see people normally, she had to take charge of the situation at such a time. Everyone crowded around Gong Coco, who was dressed up elegantly and solemnly. They were curious about her bizarre experience of returning from the sea. Gong Coco sat on a luxurious golden seat piled with pearls and jade. She forced a smile as she received the visitors one by one. Her heart was filled with anxiety. Everything in front of her was obviously familiar to her, yet there was a sense of unfamiliarity. If she couldn't return after jumping into the water, then what should she do? Continue to be a princess and never see that person again for the rest of her life? She knew that she shouldn't. Because her brother was worried about her, she shouldn't only think about other men. But Jiang Shanke. Would he be schemed against and framed by others? Princess, princess. Gong Coco raised her head. The young lady in front of her was the Lu family's daughter, Lu Shu. Her grandaunt was the mother of the previous Empress Dowager. She became the current Empress Dowager from the Empress Dowager, yet she ate vegetarian and prayed to Buddha all day long. She didn't care about worldly affairs and only smiled at the younger generation. What's wrong? Gong Coco retracted her thoughts and looked at Lu Shu, who was younger than her by a few years. They were good friends since young. Princess, let's visit the Empress Dowager together. The Empress Dowager must be very worried about you now that you've returned. This. Gong Kiki was a bit hesitant. Because of her son Gong Che, the Empress Dowager didn't like her father. Naturally, she didn't like her either. However, Gong Kiki thought of something and happily agreed. She told the women to continue enjoying the tea and flowers, and she would be back soon. Along the way, the gorgeous and complicated palace slowly unfolded in front of her eyes. Gong Coco thought that perhaps she had always belonged here. When they arrived at the Empress Dowager's Heart Palace Hall, the two of them reported and the Empress Dowager summoned them in. The palace maids lifted Gong Coco's skirt and passed through 3 doors before they saw the Empress Dowager, who was almost 60 years old. Grand Aunt. As soon as she saw Empress Dowager Lu Shu ran to her like a swallow returning to the forest. Lu Pinzhuang supported her, and a trace of joy appeared in her indifferent eyes. After Gong Che died, her heart died with him. Only when she saw these lively children could she feel her heart beating a little. Gong Coco was on the side. She saw Empress Dowager Lu in plain clothes and holding her prayer beads. She looked like a country woman. She didn't understand before why the Empress Dowager would torture herself like this, but now she understood. When the most important person in one's life left, one would feel that everything in the world had become boring. One would close oneself off, and everything else would no longer matter. Greetings, Empress Dowager. Gong Coco's voice makes Empress Dowager Lu stunned. In the smell of sandalwood, Lu Pinzhuang's expression gradually becomes indifferent. Greetings, Coco. Please sit. Thank you, Empress Dowager. Gong Coco adhered to palace etiquette and sat across from the Empress Dowager. Lu Pinzhuang felt it was a little strange. She only felt that this little princess temperament had matured quite a bit after going out. Empress Dowager, I have a few words to say to you. Please dismiss the servants. Xiao Shu, can you leave for a moment? Lu Shu was very curious. She looked at Lu Pinzhuang, and Lu Pinzhuang nodded. Shu, go to the temple hall and burn some incense. Yes. Lu Shu responded obediently and walked out with the palace maids who were waiting on her. Lu Pinzhuang calmly looked at Gong Coco. What is it? Gong Coco smiled sweetly. Does Empress Dowager know where Coco went this time when she disappeared? Lu Pinzhuang was dazzled by her smile, and only recovered after a while. I don't know. Gong Coco was not frightened by her indifference. Instead, her eyes became brighter. I went to another world. Only then did Lu Pinzhuang look at Gong Coco, who was talking nonsense. She frowned. As a princess, you should be careful with your words. I really went to another world. Gong Coco emphasized seriously. She took out the necklace and pressed the play button. On a snow-white screen, a vague image was projected. This is the recording device that I took from that world. Empress Dowager, do you think that our world would have such a thing? Lu Pinzhuang's eyes widened. She took a few steps forward and looked at the unclear image in shock. She was speechless. However, the image disappeared in a flash. Because it ran out of battery, Gong Coco took back the necklace regretfully. Jiang Shanka's original intention of giving this necklace to her was to use her perspective to record everything. Jiang Shanka also had a similar necklace. It was a kind of fun. Lu Pinzhuang had lived for 60 years. After being shocked, she accepted it. She stared at Gong Coco with a burning gaze. Why did you tell me? You shouldn't have told me about this. Gong Coco smiled. I didn't tell you. I just wanted to tell you that there are many worlds. Death is not the end. Maybe Uncle Gong Che has also gone to another world. It's just that my body is still here, so I came back. He can't come back, so I can't tell you everything. Hearing this, Lu Pinzhuang's eyes were filled with disbelief. You want to say that Che is still alive? Gong Coco nodded vigorously. He might still be living well and happy. In other worlds, he can also find his own happiness. So, Empress Dowager, you don't have to grieve every day. You should give him your blessings. After she finished speaking, Lu Pinzhuang's face was filled with tears. She knew very well that Gong Coco was just comforting herself through her fortuitous encounter. However, after hearing this, she couldn't help but hope that her son was still alive. He just went to another place to start a new life. He just couldn't come back. And Gong Coco could come back because her body was still here, but Che's body was destroyed. Gong Coco saw her crying and sighed. She pitied the hearts of all parents in the world. She was right to come today. That's all I want to say. Empress Dowager, please rest. I believe that uncle doesn't want to see you sad in another world. After Gong Coco finished speaking, she performed a standard palace salute and retreated. When she walked to the door of the hall, she looked at the sky and a trace of confusion flashed through her eyes. If she couldn't go back, would Jiang Shanka always wait for her, or would he forget her? Kiki, what are you thinking about? During dinner, Gong Qiyu saw Gong Coco in a daze and couldn't help but ask. When Kiki came back this time, it was as if she had lost her soul. It made him very worried. Looking at Gong Qiyu's worried eyes, Gong Coco finally asked. Brother, how did you know that I would come back? Mother told you. Gong Qiyu nodded. His eyes darkened slightly as he lowered his gaze and picked up her favorite dish. Gong Coco wasn't in the mood to eat. She hesitated for a moment before finally saying, then what else did mother say? Chapter 955. They all believed that their parents had reached an unfathomable state, so they believed in the dream without a doubt. However, Gong Qiyu avoided this question because in the dream, his lively and beautiful mother told him regretfully, Qiyu, Kiki will leave you and go to another world. That's her destiny. Don't be sad. Just think of it as her marrying far away, okay? He shook his head. Nothing more. Let's eat. However, Gong Coco put down her chopsticks. Brother. She looked at Gong Dai pitifully. He inherited his father Gong Dai's weakness and couldn't stand Keek's gaze. I have to tell you, brother. I met the person I love. Gong Qiyu frowned. His face, which resembled Gong Dai's, was cold. So, you want to leave me again? It's no use, Kiki. This is fate, not man-made. You can't go back. Brother. Gong Coco looked like she was about to cry. She said softly, I want to go back. I'm already married to him. So, you want to leave me? Gong Qiyu stood up angrily and stared at Gong Coco. What did that man feed you that you'd rather leave your family? Gong Qiyu's words made Gong Coco blush. Of course, she couldn't bear to leave her brother, but Qiu Xingfeng saw this and suddenly interrupted. But Kiki is getting married. She'll leave you sooner or later, Xiao Yu. Gong Coco and Gong Qiyu were stunned. Qiu Xingfeng continued, also, since Kiki is already married, she belongs to someone else's family. Xiao Yu, you've taken care of Kiki for so long. It's time to let her go. As he spoke, he felt that what he said made sense. He nodded repeatedly, making Gong Qiyu feel defeated. He turned to leave. The warm dinner ended on a sour note. Gong Coco looked at Qiu Xingfeng with red eyes. Uncle Qiu, thank you. I actually miss you a lot, Qiu Xingfeng smiled gently. His clear eyes were the same as Gong Coco's. He patted Gong Keek's head and winked at her. What's with the two of us? I'm definitely on your side. Gong Coco couldn't help but laugh. She grew up with Gong Qiu Xingfeng and the simple-minded Qiu Xingfeng. It could be said that Qiu Xingfeng's personality was the most compatible with her. She didn't need to think of anything when she was with him. That night, Gong Qiyu drank by himself. The flowers in the courtyard, his back view was lonely. Brother. Gong Kiki suddenly poked her head out. Gong Qiyu ignored her. This heartless little thing, he would never dote on her again. Brother. Kiki, 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 Kiki. No one knew how innocent Kiki was better than him. He didn't know the name of the person she was going to marry, or what his character was like. How could he allow Gong Coco to marry someone she couldn't even see? And he would never come back again. Thinking of this, Jiang Shanka drank another cup of wine, frowning. Brother. Gong Coco suddenly appeared and stared at Gong Qiyu. Brother, do you want to know what I saw this time? No. He didn't want to know how that man tricked his sister. Gong Coco stuck out her tongue. Let's not talk about him. Let me talk about something else. There are a lot of things there that are very novel. I'm guessing that mother came from that world. Her words piqued Gong Qiyu's interest. He was silent, so Gong Coco told him everything. Her soft voice was lively and cute. When she talked about something interesting, her eyebrows danced, just like how she used to do every time she went out to play with Qiu Xingfeng and came back. However, at that time, Gong Qiyu knew that with Qiu Xingfeng around, no one in the world could hurt her. He also knew that she would naturally come back when she was tired of playing, unlike now where once she left, it would be goodbye forever. Gong Coco suddenly stopped talking. He could tell that Gong Coco wanted to tell him how safe, stable, and beautiful that world was. She would be very comfortable and happy after marrying there, but he couldn't bear to part with her. If he could leave with Gong Coco, he wouldn't be so hesitant, but he couldn't bear for her to leave just like that. Brother. Seeing that Gong Qiyu was about to turn and leave, Gong Coco hurriedly called out to him. Brother, Jiang Shanka is really a good person. He's also very good to me. We've been together for a few months, and he's been meticulous to me. If I can't be with him, then in Daiyu state, I'll never marry. Gong Qiyu's back was facing her, and his back was stiff. He didn't expect that in such a short time, his sister would fall so deeply in love with that man. Gong Coco continued, and it's not like we can't meet again, brother. I swear that I'll practice martial arts well over there. I'll definitely break through the 9th level, see through the mysteries of heaven and earth, and reunite with you. Gong Qiyu slowly turned around. Under the night sky, his cold and handsome face looked so sorrowful. What if you can't do it? I'll never see you again. Gong Coco walked over and hugged him tightly. She said firmly, I can do it, brother. He's my happiness. You're my most important family member. Droplets of water soaked Gong Coco's chest. Gong Coco said with a sobbing tone. If you're not here, I can still practice martial arts in exchange for the hope of seeing you again. But if he's not here, I'm in so much pain that I want to die. It's only been a few days, but I've been feeling uneasy all day long. I feel like I'm going to die. Coco. Gong Qiyu lifted her face and looked straight into her eyes. Do you really love him that much? Gong Coco nodded firmly. I'll never forget him. Her determination made Gong Qiyu fall silent for a long time. Sit down. Brother wants to hear about that man. Gong Coco's eyes lit up, and she quickly told him about Jiang Shanka in full detail. Gong Qiyu listened, but he didn't actually listen. Instead, he looked at Gong Coco's increasingly bright eyes and fell into a daze. The sweetness and anticipation in her words moved Gong Qiyu slightly. He couldn't help but touch Gong Coco's head and whispered. My little sister has finally grown up. He had always thought that she was still young, but she had already reached the age of first awakening of love. Qiu Xingfang was right. Coco would eventually get married. He just couldn't get over that hurdle in his heart. He just loved and worried about his little sister too much. He suddenly said. Okay, I'll tell you what Mother said. But according to her, it won't be easy for you to go back. However, Gong Kiki was already jumping up and down in joy. She pulled Gong Chiyu and kept talking. Brother, you're the best. Brother. I love you the most. Gong Chiyu pursed his lips and snorted. You really love me the most. Chapter 956. Gong Coco lowered her head in embarrassment. You're my closest kin. I definitely love you the most, moi, brother. Moi. Yes, it means that I like you very, very much. Jiang Shanke looked at the man lying on the ground in front of him and smiled faintly. Wenpingqiu, I told you that you'll regret what you did. Wenpingqiu was beaten up badly at this time. He lay on the ground and said in disbelief. Jiang Shanke, do you want to kill someone? A life for a life. Do you think you can escape the punishment of the law? Jiang Shanke sat on the single-seater sofa and looked at Wenpingqiu condescendingly with a mocking smile on his face. He reached out and threw a pile of documents and photos on Wenpingqiu's face and said coldly. You're fine even after killing your own mother. Why should something happen to me? Wenpingqiu looked at the things on the ground. They were all photos of him and the higher-ups of the Jiang group. Jiang Shanke had already known what he was going to do. Even without Gong Coco's evidence, he could still kill him. This thought made Wenpingqiu panic. It was impossible. In the past month, he had inherited all of Wen Jiping's assets and then secretly communicated with that person. He was ready to give Jiang Shanke a fatal blow at any time. Who knew that he would be caught by Jiang Shanke and beaten up by him when he was still on the phone last night? Jiang Shanke clapped his hands and the Wen family doctor, who should have gone abroad, came out. When he saw him, Wenpingqiu understood everything. Jiang Shanke was good at guessing that there was something wrong with this person. Hatred flashed in his eyes. He should have killed this family doctor. Jiang Shanke, why did you bring him here? I killed someone. Do you have evidence? The murder tools had been destroyed. He watched the family doctor erase all traces. This man was at most a witness. He could still sue him for slander. Jiang Shanke chuckled. You think too much. He stood up and walked towards Wenpingqiu step by step. I don't mean to hand you over. He's only here to treat your injuries. If you come to me, I'll torture you to death bit by bit. Doesn't that sound interesting? How dare you? Jiang Shanke, my lawyer, my company, and my subordinates will all come looking for me. You cannot imprison me. Company. Subordinate. Jiang Shanke's eyes flashed. Then let them all disappear. Once the traitor is dealt with, I will send him to reunite with you. After Jiang Shanke finished speaking, he turned around and wanted to leave. Wenpingqiu was already in despair. He did not expect Jiang Shanke to be so crazy. He shouted, Are you in such a hurry to leave because you want to find Gong Coco? Ha ha ha. Let me tell you. It's useless. I injected her with WT3. That amount can kill all the horses in a medium-sized horse farm. Jiang Shanke stopped in his tracks. He suddenly rushed back and lifted Wenpingqiu from the ground. What did you say? His deep-set eyes were so fierce. But when Wenpingqiu saw that he was unhappy, he was happy. I said, Gong Coco is dead meat. Her body has probably been eaten by the fish and prawns, washed ashore, and divided by the wild dogs. She will never appear again. Jiang Shanke punched Wenpingqiu hard and beat him to the ground. But this was not enough. He kicked Wenpingqiu hard and Wenpingqiu curled into a ball in pain. Li Xiu. The brawny man in black heard him and lowered his head. "President, please give your orders." Jiang Shanke glanced at Wen Pingqiu with bloodthirsty eyes and sneered. "Cut off 10 of his fingers." Li Xiu was stunned for a moment and nodded. "Yes." Jiang Shanke's assistant could not bear it. All this time, their boss had never been involved in the underworld. Their boss had once said that there was nothing that money could not solve. But now, the boss wanted to use violence for something that could be solved with money. Perhaps this was the only way to vent the pain in his heart. Amidst Wen Pingqiu's screams, Jiang Shanke narrowed his eyes and turned to leave. He searched the entire river and asked all the residents nearby, but there was no news of Coco. It could only mean that she had returned. But Wen Pingqiu's words made him angry. She was poisoned. Would she die? At the thought of death, Jiang Shanke's chest surged with a strong murderous intent. If that was the case, he would make Wen Pingqiu suffer 100 times, 1,000 times. Time flew by and 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Many things had happened in these 3 years. When corporation went bankrupt, Wen Pingqiu's whereabouts were unknown, and the police had repeatedly looked for Jiang Shanke because he was the only person with a motive. But no matter how long they followed him, they could not find any trace of Wen Pingqiu. It was as if he had disappeared from the face of the earth. The last person who saw him was one of his lovers. No one had seen him after that. The Jiang group was thriving day by day, and it had completely diversified. From a giant in the entertainment industry to a leader in many other industries, Jiang Shanke had become the youngest and most handsome upstart in the country with the highest status in the country. Various media outlets were scrambling to report this, and the whole world was praising this man. Jiang Shanke was named the man that the world wanted to marry the most. There was no other. But, after many rounds of selection, the people who came to work at Jiang Shanke did not think so. Because the president was too scary. If one only looked at his halo, they would think that he was the most ideal man. Handsome, rich, wise, and virtuous. No amount of beautiful words could be used to describe him. But if they came into close contact with this man, they would be frozen to death. He was like a moving freezer in the summer. Just one look from him could make everyone fall silent. Since the big change 3 years ago, Jiang Shanke had carried out a bloodbath. In the end, the shares of Jiang Corporation were highly concentrated. Jiang Shanke originally had 35% of the shares, but he had gotten 15% and 13% of the shares from somewhere. All the shares in the hands of the other shareholders combined were not as good as his. So they lost the right to speak. The board of directors was useless, and Jiang Shanke was the only one who had the final say. "How's the boss mood today?" The marketing director secretly asked the president's secretary with a gloomy face. The secretary shook her head. "We can't tell you anything about the president." The marketing director showed a depressed expression and walked into the president's office with a generous heart. Soon, 3 minutes later, he walked out as if he had just died. Many people came up to him and asked how he was. The marketing director painfully covered his face. "I've been sent to the subsidiary company." "So miserable," many people gasped. It seemed that the president was in a bad mood today. Everyone knew that the president's mood could only be bad, very bad, extremely bad. 3 changes. If there was a 4th change, congratulations, it would definitely be when the boss erupted like a volcano. It seemed that they had to be more careful today. Everyone quickly dispersed and went about their own business. Jiang Shanke pulled off his tie irritably and stared out of the window with a gloomy look. No one knew what he was thinking. Chapter 957. At this time, the chief secretary came in with a cup of coffee and said, "Boss, Miss Wan invited you to dinner tonight a month ago." What do you think? Wan Lin was one of the most popular artists under Jiang Shanka's company. Previously, when Gong Kiki went missing, she was the one who replaced Gong Kiki in Mother of the World. Moreover, she became famous overnight and gained a lot of popularity. The reason why she was able to rise so quickly was mainly because she caught the eye of Jiang Shanka. She looked very much like Jiang Shanka's dead sister. When Jiang Shanka first saw her, he thought that if Xiao Wan was still alive, she would look like this when she grew up. Therefore, Jiang Shanka personally changed her stage name from Jun Lin to Wan Lin. In addition, Wan Lin's personality was very similar to the dead Xiao Wan, so Jiang Shanka was very tolerant of her. Therefore, she went from a small star to a popular movie queen. Since it was a long time ago, Jiang Shanka didn't say anything and directly agreed. However, he quickly asked about something that he had to ask every day. Is there any news of Madam? In order to get news of Gong Coco, Jiang Shanka had taken over all the docks in Haitian City for the past 3 years because he felt that if Gong Coco appeared again, she would definitely come out of the water, just like the Little Mermaid. In addition, he spared no effort in publicity and had media resources in his hands. As long as Gong Coco appeared, as long as she still had that face, he would definitely be able to find her traces immediately. The chief secretary shook his head with some regret. Boss, there is no news of Madam for the time being, but please rest assured. The advertising screen of the World Central Building has Madam's missing person notice every week, including the subway advertisements and the radio and TV broadcasts. If there is news of Madam, someone will definitely inform us immediately. After all, the boss offered a sky-high reward for finding someone, which was enough to make anyone excited. Some people even deliberately found people who looked similar to the boss for the sake of the reward, or directly lied about the information. However, every time, as long as someone provided a clue, the boss would personally go no matter how busy he was. As a result, he was ambushed a few times and was surrounded by dangers. Jiang Shanka nodded, his expression slightly gloomy. Seeing that the boss continued to read the documents, the chief secretary quietly left. When he closed the door, he looked at Jiang Shanka's upright posture and couldn't help but sigh. After such a long time, Gong Kik's appearance was probably more engraved in people's hearts than any of the other best actors and actresses. Due to the boss's extensive publicity, everyone knew that the boss's secret marriage partner was an unknown celebrity. Furthermore, he had spent 3 years searching for her. He had invested a lot of manpower, material, and financial resources, causing everyone to be amazed at his loyalty and devotion. Thinking of that quick-witted girl, although she was very beautiful, what ability did she have to make the boss so infatuated? This was probably the question of all women, of course. At night, Wan Lin was dressing up. She had been looking forward to tonight since a month ago. To her, meeting Jiang Shanka was more important than the award ceremony. When her manager saw her dressing up, she couldn't help but sigh. Lin Lin is so beautiful tonight. I'm afraid Mr. Jiang will lose his soul when he sees you. Wan Lin smiled proudly. She raised her head and asked the makeup artist to change her lipstick to a lighter color. It would make her look more delicate and pitiful. After the makeup was done, the makeup artist quickly flattered. Miss Lin, you're so beautiful. I think you're much more beautiful than that Gong Coco. I believe that one day, Mr. Jiang will understand who is the right person for him. At this time, the manager said, What Gong Coco? How can she be compared to our Lin Lin? She's just a little star. Our Lin Lin is a movie queen. Wan Lin couldn't help but smile sweetly. In the eyes of the world, Jiang Shanka's infatuation was obvious. But in Haitian City, she, Wan Lin, was Jiang Shanka's real lover. Although Jiang Shanka had never admitted it, as the only woman who could have dinner with him, she was undoubtedly unique. 3 years had passed. She believed that the woman named Gong Coco was long dead. Otherwise, who would leave such a good lover and disappear for 3 years? It was better that she was dead. One day, she would make Jiang Shanke stop looking for her and only see her beauty. Okay, that's it. Wan Lin elegantly turned around in front of the mirror. She looked at the time and brought her people to the banquet. The banquet was set at the most luxurious restaurant in Hadian City, the top floor of the state banquet. He booked the entire floor just for the peace and quiet. As Jiang Shanke's status rose, more and more people wanted to kill him. However, Jiang Shanke was no longer the same person. He had never been involved in the underworld before. But now, the strongest underworld group in Southeast Asia was inextricably linked to him. All the people who reached out to the Jiang Shanke group had their claws chopped off by Jiang Shanke. The top floor of the state banquet was 34 floors high. Jiang Shanke looked at the endless stream of neon lights outside and was slightly absent-minded. He didn't know if he could wait for the girl he loved, but he knew that he couldn't wait. If there was no hope, his life would be meaningless. When Wan Lin arrived, she saw such a scene. Outside the gorgeous floor-to-ceiling window, the neon lights and the dark night became the background. A handsome man like a god sat by the window, deep in thought. His side profile was handsome and firm. His back was straight, giving people a sense of calmness and oppression like a mountain. His dark eyes were filled with affection, coldness and softness intertwined. It made people want to become a point of his gaze at this moment, just for a moment of concentration. Mr. Jiang. Wan Lin called out a little uneasily. Contrary to the speculation outside, she actually didn't have much weight in front of Jiang Shanke. Because she knew that the reason why he liked her was because she was somewhat similar to his dead sister. Therefore, she only dared to meet him when she had something to do. She didn't dare to waste too much of his time. Sit. Jiang Shanke just glanced at her and said lightly. For Wan Lin, Jiang Shanke was still a little patient. She was very sensible and wouldn't ask for too much, so he had a good impression of her. Wan Lin felt that her dressing up for the whole afternoon was in vain. In Jiang Shanke's eyes, it seemed that other women were not women except for Gong Coco. However, she wouldn't show it, because Jiang Shanke valued not only her face but also her sense of propriety. In order to continue to be popular, she wouldn't destroy her own Great Wall. The meal was very depressing. Jiang Shanke didn't like noise, especially when eating, so Wan Lin didn't say anything. When Jiang Shanke finished eating and wiped his hands, Wan Lin said at the right time. Mr. Jiang, in fact, I'm looking for you today about the matter of Immerse's spokesperson in Asia. I think I'm qualified to be Immerse's ambassador, but I still lack a referral. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.